won't leave, and then when you try to make them leave, they burn down a couple of blocks of Los Angeles.
What they burn down? What blocks did they burn down in Los Angeles, Steve?
Torch the Waymos.
Which blocks?
Actually,
that's what I'm talking about. You're lying.
There's a good, okay, because I see what's going on. We bring up a thought, and then we kind of like stray into the weeds. Stephen, you mentioned...
No! Sarah! Don't... Straying into the weeds is the whole point, okay? If you're building a house on dog shit foundation, it's a bad house.
It's a silly way for you to once again avoid answering any of this.
Yep.
This is
everybody. I've never answered any question. He just keeps doing this routine. No, you actually have to put funding into these different programs and immigration enforcement.
He's just doing this routine. By the way, they voted for this. He's just doing this routine where he's asking me questions and expecting answers. Because the answer is always going to be that they voted for this. That's true. It is kind of a fucking stupid routine because the answer, we already know. There's no point in asking them the question. The answer is going to be, well, they voted for this. I think Sarah may have lied to him about the topic of the debate because it says up here, the Trump deportations, do more harm than good? But this guy seems to be arguing, did the people vote for Donald Trump? So I don't know if this guy was given the wrong topic. If you want to see more content like this, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Rinyald. And if you disagree with anything in the video, make sure you join the Discord and we can have a chat sometime. We're going to watch this immigration debate, and then if it's really, really bad, then we'll probably reach out to the one dude. Maybe. I meant to join up for this one, but timing just didn't line up appropriately.
Generally, here's what actually happens. I'm really mad.
Am I in here? Am I in here? Ryan. I was in one of them. There's Pisco, Wick. Oh, fuck, I was on that one. Oh, but that's not the main panel part. That might be me. Oh, yeah, shit, there I am. Okay. Dumb.
Stop.
The deregulation of the industry is obviously going to cause more of that industry.
To lubricate the trust connection between people until they have enough.
Yet we could still look at biological reality and determining who's a female, even if there are.
Why don't you denounce feminism the same way you're denouncing capitalism?
If you don't,
There's something to be objective, it needs to be
2015, and we'll go back.
live. Another debate. This evening's question in line
Shit,
is
that's
Trump,
way
or not
quieter.
a question, a statement. Pardon me. A Trump deportations do more harm than good. RTP talks and Stephen Kent from from Geeky Stoics. Sorry, I had it in my head and then it went gone. Bye. Are here to debate the topic. RTP, would you like to begin with your opening statement, please?
It would be my pleasure. Sarah, thanks for having us. Stephen, thanks for being here. Stephen is the only person ever that I have debated that ended with a hug. And I will say Stephen said some very risque things into my ear at the end of that, and I won't repeat them. But Stephen, it's good to see you again.
Thank you for keeping that private. I appreciate it.
I'm just devastated that we won't be able to hug after this. It's tough. Trump deportations do more harm than good. Let's start with the economic harm. Undocumented immigrants are a vital part of the United States workforce, especially in industries like agriculture, construction, food service, elder care. They fill jobs that are hard to staff. They pay billions in taxes, and they help keep prices down for American consumers. In 2023, undocumented immigrants paid nearly $90 billion in federal, state, and local taxes and held nearly $300 billion in spending power. Removing them would shrink the labor force, reduce productivity, and hurt businesses that rely on their labor. The impact on the GDP would be significant. Multiple studies show that mass deportation would reduce United States GDP by up to 3%. That would cost the economy hundreds of billions of dollars and lead to higher prices for everybody. Deporting millions would not free up jobs for citizens. Instead, it would cause massive labor shortages, force businesses to close or relocate, and result in job losses for native-born workers as the economy inevitably contracts. 42% of U.S. farm workers are undocumented immigrants. I don't have to lay that out too clearly to understand that U.S. farm workers losing 42% of their workers would be devastating. Without this labor force, crops like lettuce, tomatoes, corn will go unharvested, fields will be left barren, and livestock may not properly be cared for. Millions of tons of produce that could be left unharvested due to lack of workers would just be a waste. Perishable crops are especially at risk, leading to significant food waste and, more importantly, loss of income for farmers. If we're successful at carrying out the 3,000 deportations per day now mandated by DHS, food prices are projected to rise by 10%, potentially more as supply drops and production costs increase. Shortages of domestic produce may force increased reliance on imports, furthering raising prices and reducing food security. The only real solution to this seems to be more that you would have more factory farms with a need for capital, which will likely be facilitated through government subsidies, and capital, which would put family farms in the hands of corporations. In a MAGA Maha movement, this creates a stark deviation from the claimed goal of helping American farmers and also getting off overprocessed food and roided out beef. These shortages would lead to a devastated rural economy across the country, leaving us with either a need for welfare or a mass migration to bigger cities. Agricultural production could decrease by 30 to 60 billion. That's according to THS, a program that connects consumers with farm workers. Many small and mid-sized farms would be forced out of business due to labor shortages and rising costs. Local economies that depend on agriculture will suffer from lost jobs and reduced spending in local economies. The fiscal harm is significant, and it leads to higher costs, not savings. The average cost to deport one undocumented immigrant is between $10,000 and $24,000, depending on where you're looking at the number. Mass deportation of 13 million people would cost at least $315 billion, but could cost as much as $800 billion. When we deport those people, we will lose the contributions that undocumented immigrants make to Social Security and Medicare, which is about $34 billion to Social Security and about $6.5 billion towards Medicare. That's money that we'll never collect, and that's money that helps maintain those programs as they stand now. In 2023, undocumented immigrants paid between 90 and 97 billion in federal, state, and local taxes. That includes payroll taxes, Social Security, Medicare, sales tax, property tax, either directly or through rent. And of course, states with large unpopulated populations like California, Texas, and New York collect billions in additional tax revenue from these residents. It is my contention that the net fiscal impact is generally positive at the federal level, sometimes negative at the state and local level, but that's mainly due to the education costs for U.S.-born children. Granting legal status and work authorization would increase tax contributions by between $40 and $140 billion annually, which further improves our fiscal balance, and I know Stephen loves fiscal balance. On top of the fiscal implications, the harm to the community we've already seen has been devastating. Family separation, social disruption can't really be measured in terms of data, but adding division into cities, counties, states, and the country where there's no evidence of any fiscal benefit is frankly baffling to me. It would make some more glass half empty liberals lead them to believe that for some, maybe it truly is about cruelty or racism. Family separation, billions of United States children have undocumented parents. Deportations potentially could separate families, traumatize children, increase foster care and social service costs. When immigrants fear deportation, they're far less likely to report crime or cooperate with police. That makes communities less safe for everybody. In some communities, this lack of trust moves communities to look to gang admission for protection and economic mobility. There's also the social and health impacts where children in mixed status suffer academically and emotionally when a parent's deported. Health outcomes worsen and trust in public institutions erode. The moral and humanitarian harm that would be cast on our country. I believe America's strength comes from its values, opportunity, family, and fairness. Mass deportation plans often rely on expedited removal. That can oftentimes sweep up legal immigrants and even U.S. citizens, denying them fair hearings and due process. By targeting legal immigrants, recent Republican proposals have called for ending protections for legal immigrants, including DACA, TPS recipients, green card holders, and now even naturalized citizens. Our international reputation has been destroyed. Harsh deportation policies damage our standing around the world. They undermine our role as a beacon of hope and freedom and a country with values. I believe there's no net benefit to mass deportations, and I think the evidence is overwhelming. I think that it's really difficult to make an argument for mass deportation without relying on stories like Lake and Riley, without names, and without tugging at heartstrings. If we look at this just economically, it makes perfect sense to give these folks amnesty. I think a comprehensive immigration reform that provides a path to legal status, secures the border, and meets labor markets would be a far better way to go about this. And I think Trump's mass deportation agenda would inflict enormous economic, fiscal, humanity, and
so, fuck. That was a really, 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 really good opening statement right until the very end. When he said, like, oh, the only thing that conservatives can do is tug at the heartstrings and bring up Lake and Riley. Well, that's kind of true. It feels like he kind of cedes that there is actually, like, a moral case that you can make for mass deportations because of something like Lake and Riley. This is just a messaging thing. He probably delves more into this, but I feel like saying, on top of that, like, the only thing that you can really bring up against the mass deportations is these, like, kind of horror stories of illegal immigrants doing crime. But there's obviously going to be way worse effects of, ICE ripping illegal immigrants away, or even just point to, the torture going on in CCOT. I know that's something that I've been pointing to a lot, but I mean, there's a reason. It's really, really, really bad. And the idea that that's somehow justified by, individualist stories about particular things that actually are very, very, very cursorily related to immigration at all. I don't know. I feel like there could have been a better way to address that. I think you should have brought up the kid with cancer who was deported. Yeah.
Frankly, American harm, while failing to deliver the promised benefits that they tell us every single day. It would make America poorer, less safe, and less true to its values. The evidence is overwhelming. Mass deportations do far more harm than good.
Thank you, RTP and Steve.
Overall, though, very, very, very good opening statement, and I hope that gets carried over. And I'm really interested to see what Stephen Kent says here, because I mean, I've been waiting for a long time to see a defense of mass deportations that isn't just xenophobia, but or like just the weird nationalist rhetoric of like, you know, prioritize American citizens, LOLOL. Yeah.
To you.
Okay, over to me then. All right, Trump deportations do more harm than good. The first question here that must be answered about the motion regarding harm or good is who or what is potentially being harmed by deportations. If this motion were about individuals and illegal immigrants who entered the United States without permission or process, there is no doubt in my mind that deportations do them more harm than good. People come here from all around the world because America has something special that they want a piece of. The American dream may be a punchline to many people in our audience and to natural-born citizens under the age of 40 who can't afford a mortgage or get out from their college debts, but it is not a joke to the millions of people who risk life and limb every year to come here or patiently wait for the process to play out for the promise of prosperity greater than that of their parents, keeping more of what they earn or relative safety in their communities, plus rule of law compared to places like Honduras, Haiti, or Mexico where they might have come from. As such, we have problems that the rest of the world does not have when it comes to immigration, namely scale. Because our legal immigration system is a catastrophe, which we would agree on, totally broken by a cowardly Congress, the U.S. gets flooded from all sides on both coasts by people who want to be here. Every developed nation in the world has this problem, but not at the scale that we do. Every developed nation, Japan, Australia, France, as just a couple examples, detains, houses, and deports individuals in their country illegally who lack a visa, a work status, or a refugee status that has been deemed appropriate. It is only in the United States where our mythology around 19th and 20th century immigration through Ellis Island has outstripped its usefulness to modern day. We have chosen to embrace lawlessness and non-enforcement, the very things that many people come here to this country to escape. Yes, individual people are harmed by deportation, but I don't believe that we are debating that motion tonight. I believe we are debating and can only debate whether or not deportations do more harm than good for the United States, a sovereign nation state and collective of people. The definition of nation state.
I mean, yes. I would also assume that like you're not here to debate whether or not deportations are bad for the people being deported, obviously. Yeah, we're talking about, well, one, like the goodness or badness on the United States or of the United States, but also like the morality of it. Like, is it good the way that we're going about these deportations? I think that's an important point to hit on whenever you have these kind of discussions. I don't know if they are going to get into it because it felt like RTP was mostly making an economic argument. Another thing, like when you bring up lawlessness, we're embracing lawlessness. Not to sound like a broken record, because I bring all of these points up, but you voted for a felon, okay? Like, you're literally supporting the person who's breaking the law and declaring states of national emergency in order to expedite these removals. The idea of bringing up lawlessness as an argument against illegal immigration is comical whenever you're relying on emergency powers during peacetime and lawlessness to get rid of them.
Is important here to me. It is not a concept. It is a country with well-defined borders and a shared sense of culture and history. Racially homogeneous countries like Finland and Iceland and Japan, they function like a woven blanket. They are unified, and the sameness of every inch of the blanket is a feature of being in that country. It's what you expect. The United States is not like that. It's a quilt of a dozen patches all stitched together. We have Chinese communities, Venezuelan communities, and Cuban and Latvian within the collective, but it is only made possible by the fact that they do legally belong here and are perceived by other people on the quilt to be contributing.
I appreciate him. It got a little scary whenever you bring up like ethnic homogeneity or something. Homogeneity. Oh my God. Okay. Thank God. When you bring up ethnic homogeneity, sometimes you get in really scary situations, but I'm glad that he made a point to say, you know, it works to have like these different communities with different cultural backgrounds as long as they have the shared communal thing of being here, belonging here, being here legally. I generally agree with that. Again, the methodology is the really, really big issue here. But as well, like, I really do hope he engages with the argument that RTP actually made. Whether or not in the opening statement is whatever, but yeah, like I hope that the economic point gets brought up, because like I feel like there's no real defense of mass deportations without conceding, yeah, there is going to be some economic pain to it. If he can make that concession, I'll appreciate the honesty.
To the business of the country and not just the business of their own self-interest. See,
belong here, they want to get rid of birthright citizens. Yeah, obviously there's a contradiction, because like also the revoking of the student visas, shit like that. But not really super related to the mass deportation thing necessarily. Now the topic is, Trump deportations do more harm than good. So I guess the deportations are an isolated thing. So this guy doesn't necessarily support the ban on birthright citizenship. So
This is where immigration anarchists to the left embrace the radical individualism and selfishness that is usually found on the libertarian right, where no one person or family has duties to the people around them or an obligation to the collective. That's why the ladies on The View, they're clowns, on ABC were so appalled by Arnold Schwarzenegger, an Austrian immigrant who argued that immigrants of all stripes of the United States owe the country something in return for their being here, that it's a privilege, not a right, that they should be volunteering, doing community service, learning English and speaking it at home. There is more to this than just payroll taxes and their labor for our cheap farm goods. In 2024, Gallup showed that 55% of
well, like saying there's more to this than number go up. I'm only willing to accept arguments like that as long as we both agree and you do concede that number will go down. Like economic measurements will go down because of these deportations. You can kind of sum it up as oh, well, there's more to life than GDP. There's more to a country than GDP. Okay, well, do you want to explain to the people that these deportations will, and you agree, will lead to economic downturn, will lead to economic hardship?
Americans want immigration levels reduced, which is the highest level since 2001. For context, that was 28% in 2020. So that's a lot of numbers. It doubled in 4 years. And I think we all know why during the Biden years. Also, cause for concern to me.
They're going into the woven blanket that he was talking about. Yeah, of course. I'm just saying, like, for the purposes of this debate, like, you can't, for the purposes of this debate, I understand why that's something that they wouldn't want to engage with, because it's only cursory, like it is related, but it's cursorily related, and you can't touch on every single topic during one debate. I understand why that's not something that he would really be considering, and I don't know if I would hold it against him if he doesn't end up bringing it up. And there is an argument to say, like, okay, well, where do mass deportations stop? I agree, but it's a separate question.
Fewer than half of Americans, 44%, now say that they trust all or most of the people in their neighborhood, down from 52% a decade ago, and it is worse from 20 years ago. The reasons for this are many, and one of them is uncontrolled, unaccountable, and undemocratic immigration that goes beyond what Americans are comfortable with or what they ever vote.
Is that true? Is there any link there? Is it true that the reason that people don't know their community as well is immigration? My guess would be that would probably just be due to like technological expansion. Like there's way more reason to stay inside now, but
for. This decline in support for immigration and the return of nativist politics is bad for the United States. I believe JRTP and I agree on this. We have a century ahead of us that is going to be defined by struggle and great power conflict with much more populous and organized opponents, China. And to win this, to maintain our dominance in the world, we actually need more people. I am a weird right-wing proponent of the 1 billion Americans strategy that was put out by Matt Iglesias that says we need to triple the size of our population over time to meet these challenges. But we can't force Americans to have more babies, and immigration is actually really important. And as such, so is support for immigration, which we've destroyed.
Okay. At least there's that. So I appreciate the kinds of concessions that he's making, because like it feels like these mass deportations are very, very, very hard to defend. But the best way to do it is kind of to distance yourself from the MAGA base. And that's kind of what this guy's doing. Like he's kind of making his own version of the mass deportations, which I appreciate, and kind of separating it out from the broader policy aims of the Trump administration. So this is going to be a much, much more interesting kind of conversation. So that's good.
Lose the majority's support for national growth and expansion, we will lose on these global challenges. And just to bring us over the finish line, so to return to my original point here, deportations do more good than harm for the country because they reflect the will.
But also, we're looking at mass deportations like that. It's a different thing, because when we're talking about mass deportations, we're also kind of presupposing the expedited nature of them, which it's a much taller task. If he's just talking about like mass deportations as in theory deporting a lot of people, then I don't even know if there'd be a huge debate there, or if there would be a whole ton of pushback. I mean, maybe still from this guy because he thinks that economic measurements are good, and that's fine. But when we talk about mass deportations, I feel like we kind of presuppose the expedited nature of them, which makes this issue a lot more clear cut in its badness. I
of the
think.
people who have voted for it and a lawful process and the enforcement of immigration law. Getting this right is very important. And in a perfect world, Congress would pass a generous pathway to citizenship that brings everybody out of the shadows, but they haven't done it. And in the meantime,
It seems like on the policy proposals, like I would probably agree with this guy, making, you know, more boisterous legal pathways for non-citizens to become legal immigrants. He might even agree with mass amnesty, and that'd be fine. I guess I don't even know where this debate is going to go, if it's going to go into expedited removals or if it's just going to go into like this guy actually really defending illegal immigration or illegal immigrants. I don't know.
To do the correct thing, which is enforce the law of the land. And it might be the case that aggressive deportations actually boost public support for an immigration bill, because there are many people out there who don't like what they're seeing on TV with ICE operations. Americans, go figure, they do tend to want one thing, but they never want the consequences or the bad feelings or the things that come along with that.
True.
Joe Rogan's shock at deportations is a very good example of this. The alternative is to do nothing and continue letting the lawless approach of immigration go on and continue watching public support for immigration collapse when we need it the most, and watch more nativist political figures rise to meet the demand. The alternative is to sit back as watch as American political institutions crumble.
I feel like this is a weird argument, though, to make. Like, mass deportations are good because Americans will be uncomfortable with it, so we can get a bill passed, because if we don't get a bill passed, then we're going to see the rise of the nationalist, nativist politicians. It kind of feels like the same kind of arguments that communists make, where like the MAGA communists make, where like, well, maybe he'll fuck up the capitalist system so bad that everyone realizes that we need the Marxist revolution. It's like, I don't know if that's, I feel like there's a better way to go about that. But hey,
under a citizenry that doesn't believe,
especially since, I mean, not again, oh my God, broken record, that border bill in Congress was set to pass. No, don't ever let people walk off of that. That border bill was set to pass. It had the support in Congress to pass.
the country exists to serve their interests anymore. Jay will have this audience believe by the end of tonight that what we need to do is be more nice. And if Americans don't wake up tomorrow feeling more nice about illegal immigration, then they should be ignored or forced to stomach the status quo of being surrounded by 11 to 18 million strangers, unaccounted for individuals in this country. A bone is going to have to be thrown to keep this country together and get us back on the path of majority support for controlled immigration that strengthens the United States. That bone is enhanced funding and capacity for mass deportations, which is within the right of any nation state to do, and within the right of a self-governing people to demand.
Thank you, Stephen. And thank you to both of you, gentlemen, not only for being here, but for making such nice opening statements. That was the most,
True.
I don't even know how to describe it, but it was very good for both of you. Just a kind reminder to the audience, we, of course, will get through our debate, and then we will go into closing statements, and we will read and respond to your kind super chats, along with following up with open panel dumpster fire. I do have one small additional note to make this evening. As most of you know of my dog, Nix, and Nix blew her knee out over the weekend. She's almost 11 years old and will be requiring surgery to fix it. So just know all of the funding here, that's where we're going with it. Support the dog fund. We'll make that work. All right, gentlemen, I leave the floor open to you.
Yeah, just before we start.
Give me 1 second. I got to open my door. Come on, baby. She's got to tend to her dog. I've got to tend to my cat. Okay.
There's still a bell going off in my ear. Is that able to go off?
I think that's you. I don't hear a bell.
I don't have a bell. it's your buzzer bell. You just turned it off. Okay. Where shall we begin?
I could respond to what you say. You want to go in that?
Yeah,
order?
I spoke second, so you can dive in. Yeah.
Sure. I think it seems to me that the crux of your argument is that Americans do not like how immigration has been going, and they need to change. So we either do this or we do nothing. Is that fair?
Yeah, I am saying that we actually need to respond to the desires of the American public to roll back what has happened with immigration, at least in the past 4 years. What happened under the Biden administration was particularly unpopular and offensive to most people. The scale at which it was happening and so rapidly flooding people's communities coast to coast in this country is something that needs to be rolled back. You're never going to roll back, the decades of illegal.
I think this issue is entirely manufactured. I mean, not necessarily. Like, the number, like the increase, like the influx of people that we saw post Title 42 was, and a little pre Title 42 being revoked, was pretty crazy. And I can understand why people would be uncomfortable with that, like naturally, without like the fear mongering from the news. I don't know if I necessarily see a problem with it, if I'm being 1000% honest, but I mean, like, there is probably a problem, like a theoretical problem with people coming over, not being vetted, having like, and I'm pretty sure I've heard this, I don't know the validity, but like a lot of countries have kind of begun to understand how easy the asylum process is to kind of overwhelm and then necessarily exploit. So there probably does need to be some sort of reform there. I would theoretically agree with that, just because, like, if you are able to overwhelm the asylum process, then you can go years without being checked, without going through your asylum court hearing, and that's bad. That is opening the door for a lot of unsavory things. So I can understand why there why there's a perceived problem there. I think the problem is absolutely 1000% overblown. I could meet with you right there. But like not a problem, or like entirely manufactured. I probably don't agree with that.
Immigration that we've had in this country that have not been addressed by the legal system or by Congress. But you can absolutely roll back what happened in the last 4 years and track down a great amount of people who got in here while the gate was wide open. And if the voters want that, they should be given it.
Yeah, my concern is that I think the voters don't know what the fuck they're looking at. Almost everybody who came here in the last 4 years came here legally. These were asylum seekers. That is a legal process. And Republicans sat on their hands and refused to vote on a bill from James Langford.
This is also true. It's also true that that's a legal thing. Like, to categorize these undocumented immigrants overwhelming the asylum process as illegal immigrants is kind of shifting the blame off of our fucked up system. It's not these people's fault who are valid asylum seekers. Whether or not their claim ends up being litigated in the way that they want it to, or whether or not they have a valid claim for asylum, is separate from the legal right that they have to seek that asylum. And this is where Tron bringing up the messaging comes in, is the messaging of these people being illegal immigrants does really overblow the issue. Like, something needs to be done, sure, and I'm sympathetic to that, but the idea that this is like a world-breaking illegal immigrant surge, and that this should be like an election issue, or that yeah, I don't know. It's true.
So that Trump could win the presidency. It's really hard for me to like accept this idea that Republicans actually want to fix immigration when they sat on their hands and refused to pass a bill that would have effectively shut down the border, closed the border for months at a time. At the time, we had 8,000 people coming across the border, and James Langford bill would have shut down the border because the 7-day rolling average would have been over 5,000. We would have shut that down. But almost everybody, if you look at illegal immigration during the Biden administration, that number actually was down. It was legal immigration, and it's fair to say that a lot of these people had asylum claims that will not be approved, and that they didn't have a legitimate asylum claim.
That is such a stretch. That is. I mean, I'm saying
probably 90%. Probably 90% of them. But that's what's crazy about this. None of those people that came during the Biden administration are eligible for deportation under Trump's new strategy.
That's super true as well. Oh fuck, I love this guy. He's saying everything I want to say and more. That's absolutely true. Like, this new, I guess the crackdown suspends asylum, but that got overruled. The $100, premium in order to seek asylum, that does kind of change the thing. But like aggressive mass deportations through like the Alien Enemies Act, or through like these expedited processes that he's looking for, that doesn't address the asylum seeker problem, because all of these people have legal rights to be here. These are legal immigrants. That's true.
Strategy. Those people are here under an asylum process. If they haven't had their asylum claim heard, they're not being deported.
That is such a bizarre claim. I don't even know where to begin. The asylum process is a real thing that exists. When you go through the border, you go through these checkpoints, and then you get paired up with a case, a judge who's managing all these different cases. These catch and release cases, which were, they were 6,500 a day when we were looking at like 2022 coming into this country. We are upwards of like 4 million.
But if they're following the legal process, then they're a legal immigrant. Yeah.
Or something just in the past couple of years. These are not all legal. That's a really, really weird rhetorical trick to try to play.
Wait, no, how is that? They're following the legal process to become a citizen. Seeking asylum is a legal process. Trump's MO is basically just doing executive orders that sound like they will do something, but actually doing nothing. Yeah, either that or really, really heavy-handed executive orders that end up being blocked for unconstitutionality. Now with the injunctions ruling, I haven't done a whole ton of reading into it, but I assume that is going to be a little different, but yeah, it's either executive orders that sound really, really good but actually don't do much, or really heavy-handed ones that really won't go into effect.
Not legal.
When
If they
people
come
are
claiming
claiming
asylum, isn't
oh
that
my
legal?
God, claiming asylum. So just because, like,
That's the process,
no,
though, right?
just because you know that you can say the word asylum does not mean that you just walk across the border and shout it and it
Actually, it
becomes,
does.
and no, it does not. It does not
It
become
does.
true. And
It
so
does.
my
No, it does
question,
mean
no,
that.
my
It means you
question
can
for you,
claim
hold
asylum.
on. My question for you is, what is the limiting principle on this? Because I will like, I'll give you one where I will throw a bone. I said that earlier. Like Venezuela, like that's a good example of a country, political unrest is falling apart. If you oppose the regime, you'll be killed or detained or locked up. There's a pretty good case for a lot of people fleeing Venezuela and trying to get up to the United States as quick as possible to avoid that kind of persecution. But if you just sort of take that and go, wow, South America is a mess. The entire continent is overrun by political turmoil and drug.
So also, this guy, RTP, he's not making the claim that we ought accept more asylum claims. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that the people who are here, who legally followed the process of seeking asylum, are legal until that asylum claim is either upheld and they stay legal, or denied and they become illegal and deportable. But just because the claim ends up being rejected, that doesn't mean that you can just mass deport them.
Cartels, then you're basically just saying that, oh, shit has gone south down below the border. They can all come up here. That is not how this has ever worked. It's not how it's intended to work. I don't even think that's how you want it to work.
Stephen, if you come to this country and you walk across the border and you claim asylum, what are you entitled to?
Oh, you want me to respond on the spot? You are entitled to a case manager to actually look at your claim and determine whether or not there is a threat of meaningful violence to you upon your return home.
Right. And if that claim cannot be heard immediately, what happens? You can remain in the country until your claim is heard, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so almost everybody that came here during the Biden administration came here under the asylum process, which means that none of these people that you're talking about from the Biden administration, they're not being deported right now.
Mm-hmm.
You're going into workplaces, you're going into courts, you're going into communities. None of the people right now that are being deported.
Kind of. I mean, some people are being picked up from their asylum hearing on expedited like matters, or like expedited means, but yeah, more or less, like normal sweeping mass deportation programs aren't going to get rid of people with asylum. RTP Talks is goated. Follow him. He's a great rhetorician and has enjoyable live streams. Yeah, I mean, this dude is fucking killing it so far.
Are asylum seekers that came during the Biden administration. My biggest contention, and I'm going to be honest, like, it's a little bit sad to hear this. My biggest contention is that Americans support Donald Trump's deportation. Well, it's about, you said about 60% that we want to deport people because they don't know what the fuck they're looking at. They have no clue. It's the same people that believe that in Springfield they were eating the cats and eating the dogs, and that wasn't true. Nobody knows what they're looking at because one party has decided to show up every single day and lie about what's going on at our southern border. They lied about it the entire time. There was nothing Joe Biden could have done. Joe Biden could not unilaterally change the amnesty laws. The amnesty
laws. How the fuck did I subscribe
to
this guy? Why did I subscribe to him? How do I know this guy? Whoa, wait, hold on. I found this guy somehow. All right, well, I guess I'm already subscribed to him.
In Langford's bill, so they would change it, and that would have stopped all the traffic at the border on that day. It would have stopped all the traffic at the border. The Republicans said, we want Donald Trump to run on how broken our border is, so they allowed this just to continue to fester through Biden's entire presidency, so they could run on fixing amnesty, and they still haven't done it. We're still not fixing amnesty.
Would you have liked to see the traffic at the border stopped?
Sure.
Why?
Because it was too many people.
Oh, really? It was too many people? You said there was no situation at the border. You just said it was a lie that there was a humanitarian crisis at the border.
No. I don't think that's what he said at all. Maybe I was distracted. I'm pretty sure the point that he was making is that seeking asylum is a legal process, and that mass deportations from Donald Trump, assuming that they're not done via expedited processes, aren't going to be happening now. You can't just deport somebody with a valid or with a pending asylum claim. So these mass deportations aren't even going to address the problem from Biden's presidency. And if Congress passed a bill to reform the asylum process, then it would. That would address the problem. This is where you ask, where is Trump's immigration bill? I love that question. I love that question so.
Border.
No.
I mean, it's overrun.
I said they lied about what was happening at the border. They said that these were illegal immigrants pouring across our border. And that's not the case. These were almost exclusively legal immigrants pouring across our border.
And you said it was too much.
Yes, which is why we needed to which is why we have to change our amnesty laws, which can only be done through Congress. But Republicans sat on their hands to make sure Donald Trump won the election. They refused to do anything for 2 straight years so that Donald Trump could win an election and then still do nothing about amnesty. We still haven't fixed the problem.
Yep, true.
No, I just find this to be puzzling as a line of attack that you sort of want the Langford approach to have actually passed
Right.
to stop the flow at the border. You say it's too many people, but you also sort of hand wave it away as if there's no problem.
No, I'm not doing that. No, there's a massive problem. I don't understand why you guys lie about it. I don't understand why you don't tell the American people.
Yeah, there is a problem, but the problem is not how you're prescribing it. The problem isn't something that can be solved with mass deportations. And it's not a problem of illegal immigration. It's a problem of legal immigration. Fuck, that's a Destiny talking point. It's not an illegal immigrant problem. It's a legal immigrant problem. There's too many asylum seekers. There's no contradiction in that approach. You're just diagnosing the problem incorrectly.
The truth is,
you're not talking to a Republican member of Congress. You're talking to a guy who lives here. So there is no you guys.
you don't seem to know this, Stephen. You don't seem to know that these people were amnesty seekers.
No,
So I'm curious where you got
I
your
do know
information.
that people come across and shout the word amnesty.
That's the law.
That's legal. You're allowed to do that. You don't even need to be at a port of entry. You could just do that.
Look, you can manipulate the law 100 different ways.
So how do you change the law then?
If you manipulate the law to where you're coming in legally, then that's a legal crossing. That's legal. If you're manipulating the law to where what you're doing is legal, then that's legal. That's not manipulating the law. And also, the way that the asylum laws are written, that's not a manipulation of the law at all. That's a very, very straightforward reading. Literally says in the INA, it doesn't matter if you even seek it at a port of entry. Sometimes you can't avoid the Destiny talking points because they're too salient. Yeah, fuck, you're right.
Across the border and shouting amnesty because your countries have been run into the ground and poorly run is not something that you can just walk across the border, board a train, hide in someone's trunk, go below the floorboards of an 18-wheeler, come into the country, and then disappear.
Yeah, most of those things are things that weren't happening. These people you could literally watch the lines at Eagle Pass. There were lines, like hour-long lines. I have a friend who was down there golfing, taking video of the people on the other side of the wall waving at him, waiting in line. I just don't understand, Stephen, how you recognize that our amnesty laws are broken, and this is what Republicans seem to want to do right now. They say the amnesty laws are broken, those that know, or at least learn that the amnesty laws are why we had all this immigration, and then they say we should do something about it, and that thing we should do about it is not to fix the law. We should just start deporting people. Why not fix the law?
Why not deport people who aren't supposed to be here?
They are, but that's not these people who came in. Most of these people, again, Stephen, none of the people that you're talking about that came in during the Biden administration, almost none, are the people being deported now because those people still have protected status because of amnesty.
In Mexico, like you don't have to do things the way that the Biden administration was doing it.
Mexico said no, they didn't want to do it anymore.
Maybe they don't get to say no. They're a weaker and lesser country than we are. We can tell them what
Paste? Send them to Mexico if they don't like it? What, go to war? Do you think that... What? What? Holy fuck, what?
Going to do if you actually twist people's wrists.
Do you notice how already you have resorted to forcing other countries to do it your way because you don't want to admit that you guys just don't know what's going on?
I mean, geopolitics is a real thing. You can make other countries do things that you want.
Yeah,
so
is legislation, and we could do that. But Republicans didn't want to do that because I think the reality is Republicans know that they don't have real things to run on, so they're going to run on fear. That's why you can't see a Republican go on a microphone without saying the word.
Yeah, please run on the idea that we're going to do remain in Mexico, and in order to do it, we're going to, what, invade? And maybe that, okay, let's say that that's, hyperbolic because he's obviously not going to say that. What are we going to do? Like terrorists? Why would we? Why? Also, Romania and Mexico is bad, but like, that's a stunning answer.
Lake and Riley. That's why they lied to you about eating the cats and eating the dogs. That's why the constant fear-mongering. That's why Trump's sending the National Guard to California to fear-monger and said the whole city's on fire. These are riots. It was like a handful of incidents. That's why. It's because instead of doing the right thing, instead of doing things the right way, this party, for whatever reason, has said, we're not doing legislation anymore. We're not fixing laws anymore. We are going to hand over all the power to Donald Trump, and we are blindly going to follow what he does.
Dude, this guy's a goat. Oh my God. It feels like I'm listening to me. Holy, it's sick. Oh my God.
And that has led to U.S. citizens being detained, U.S. citizens being arrested. That has caused 75% of the people in CCOT who are serving life sentences in El Salvador, their only crime was a misdemeanor of overstaying a visa or crossing the border.
Dude, and tying it back to sending them to CCOT. I love this guy. Tying it back to sending them to CCOT is crazy. All he needs to say is torture camp, and you're watching a Ringgold debate. Oh my God, this dude's awesome. Remain in Mexico being bad doesn't land with them because it's mainly for humanitarian reasons. Yep, true. Yeah, they're not humans. True. Why can't we have a European relationship with our border countries, the GOP? That's why. I don't know. I don't know enough about the I don't know.
Chosen cruelty rather than just use the laws and fix it.
Well, I mean, if you're going to kind of keep going back to immigration reform and doing some sort of bill, I mean, I think you know that I'm in favor of that. Legislation is absolutely what this country needs, and then in the absence of legislation that addresses immigration, sets up a pathway. And when people say get in line for immigration, there is no line. You will wait 20 years to go through a legal process.
Make sure. I hope he brings it up. Trump doesn't want a bill. We didn't need new legislation. We need a new president. God, please let him bring it up.
In this country, and it is a huge problem, and it is a national embarrassment. But we are talking about deportations and whether or not they do more harm than good. And so I want to redirect the conversation back to the spirit of this country and what I think people are
my God.
so.
Oh my God! Wait, I hope. I don't. Okay, like I don't know. Never mind. I'll let him cook.
Angry about, and what they are clearly reflecting their anger in their voting habits. I am deeply concerned, and someone in the chat was mocking the idea of the crumbling American institutions, but like this is true, and you talked about it as well, Jay. The crumbling trust in American institutions, public trust is eroding, and a huge part of this has to do not only with immigration, but just a feeling that people are not being heard by their government. The immigration issue, people want addressed. People also want to know their neighbors. They want to know the people who live in their neighborhood. They want to feel connected to other Americans. I think this is a huge problem. I'm actually legitimately terrified.
What does knowing your neighbors have to do with immigration?
It has a lot
Are you saying you can't know them if they're from another culture?
What I'm saying is that when you have neighbors living next door, crowded into a house, maybe 5-6 contractor trucks who all live in the single family home next door, and what laugh?
I mean,
you laugh as if that doesn't happen.
Yeah, you're acting like that's the norm. That's not the norm. I live in Arizona. That's not the norm.
It is absolutely the norm.
Where do you live?
I live in the DC area.
So
okay, well, I can tell you in a border state. I can tell you unequivocally that is not the norm.
Which is, I find it puzzling to laugh at it. In Manassas, Virginia, it is absolutely the norm.
God, okay. This guy, I don't want to be mean because this guy has been nothing but he's said some crazy shit, but you know, he's supporting the mass deportations because obviously he will. It's been more or less pretty reasonable here, but something tells me that this guy's gonna go down the Benny Johnson route, where he starts out pretty reasonable, a kind of crazy controversy comes out, and then that ruins his career, and he just goes to the fucking far right grifting, taking like special interest money. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because they look similar. This dude just looks like Benny Johnson. Oh, I'm a little scared.
The single family homes in this borough that I live in, you can just kind of see which ones are occupied by 5-6 contractor trucks. People who are not tied into the community. Let me finish my sentence. People who are not tied into the community. People who are living together, going to work, coming home. They're never contributing.
Also, we need to kill this idea that interruptions are never necessary in debate. They absolutely are. I don't want to fucking waste 2 hours of you addressing a point that I'm not making or short-circuiting the actual real interesting thing. I don't need a fucking Van Gogh visual still life picture painted for me. I need you to engage with the topic. There's never going to be a situation where, unless you're describing a hypothetical or unless you're describing like a real life scenario with multiple details, I don't understand why an answer to a question like this needs to be that long, or why like a follow-up question, even if it's in the middle, even if it interrupts, needs to wait. Like, fuck. I'm not a meat rider, I promise, but Destiny does this well, where like if it's perceived that he's off topic and you just cut him off, then you just engage it. Like, that's fine. Now, if you start cutting them off to the point where they can't make a point at all, then yeah, that's bad. But like asking a follow-up when you think that he's going to go off onto something that's not relevant, that should be 1000% normalized. And I encourage everybody to always do that, because it just saves so much fucking time. Unless, you know, you kind of have to do it based off of, like, timing, because sometimes you'll cut people off when they actually do have a point that they want to finish making, or, like, something that does exonerate their previous, you know, filibustering or whatever. But, God, I hate the no interruption stuff. I hate it.
To the place that they live. They have simply bought up real estate.
Or the idea that like interrupting somebody is necessarily disrespectful. I hate that.
For families who are going to do events together in their neighborhoods, families that are going to know each other, have cookouts, have kids who play together. But a lot of our real estate across this area is just being gobbled up by people who don't actually have any legal status in the country and don't contribute to the community.
But if
and that is a real problem.
If I play
Man, this guy is giving off white nationalist vibes. I don't want to be that guy because that's so rude to say. But like, he's giving off. He's. I don't know if he's necessarily giving off white nationalist vibes. It just feels like. Okay. I think this guy believes in everything that white nationalists dog whistle for. I think that's what it is. Where he believes genuinely in all of the dog whistles. That's kind of how it feels right now.
Exact words, or if I just wrote down those words and I put them on a piece of paper and I said, this guy's talking about segregation in the civil rights era, they'd be like, oh yeah, that's the exact same argument. I don't like these people.
Oh, the guy who was talking about the cheap crops and the cheap labor. You're going to lecture me on segregationism?
Your argument is legitimately.
Who's going to grow the corn?
Steven, if you're going to be, Steven, now who's interrupting? Your argument legitimately is there's a house that has 4 or 5 trucks in front of it and they don't hang out with us, and Americans don't want that, so let's get rid of them. How am I supposed to take that any other way than racist? How's a different way I can take that?
A violation of zoning laws, for one.
It's like that's what we're worried about is fucking zoning laws.
It is what we're fucking worried about.
Why are we worried about zoning laws?
Because the zoning laws, particularly like in this area in Northern Virginia, and you'll probably find this in different places in Arizona and Texas, depending on whether or not the city council there is Democratic or Republican, will opt to not enforce the zoning laws for things like overcrowding and then the purchasing of residential family units and single family homes to be used as hybrid workspaces for, again, contractors. And a lot of the city council people in cities that do this, that basically throw their zoning codes out the window, they are doing it because these are Latino voters who they are counting on them to reelect them in the next cycle. No, it's not. This
is embarrassing.
No,
imagine, I'm just imagining, like, today's the 5th of July. Imagine telling our founding fathers. Imagine telling our founding fathers that 250 years from now, what we'd be arguing about is overcrowding in a house and fucking zoning laws, and that we were choosing to get rid of people out of this country. They have 5 work trucks, so all 5 of those people are working. Imagine telling our founding fathers that this working family needs to be removed because there's too many of them in one house, and that makes me feel icky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is
true, dude. Oh my god. Oh, this dude's the GOAT. What the fuck? How did I not hear about this guy? Dude, he's like, fuck, this might be my new streamer. I love this guy. I've got nothing to add to all of his responses because they're just, they're good. This dude's awesome.
This is honestly, like, it's pathetic. We want to run people out of this country because we don't like that there's too many cars on the side of our neighborhoods and that too many people live in one house?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's the most elitist shit I've ever heard.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's your viewpoint. That's your viewpoint.
Especially
for everybody out there that doesn't live in a nice
and also, at the expense of, we're doing this with expedited removal. We're doing this because there's a state of national emergency. We're doing this at the expense of Americans because the economy is objectively going to get worse. This guy doesn't even seem like he's disputing this. He just kind of does the people aren't money. Like, we're doing all of this. We're like ignoring all of this. We're ignoring all of the bad side effects because of zoning laws. That's the national emergency? Really?
But for everybody out there, no matter what you look like, that has to rent a room because you can't afford a place of your own. For everybody out there that's had to move back in with their parents. For everybody out there who's had to move their parents back in with them. For everybody out there who's ever housed a friend who didn't have a place to live. Or
the streamer has awakened.
Just know that if Steven was in your neighborhood, Steven would be going directly to the HOA and being like, these guys are making my street look bad. And I don't like that. It's fucking Karen over here.
And it has a lot to do with social trust and cohesion. People move to certain communities in this country.
Oh my God. Okay, so this is the problem. This is the problem. This is why I keep saying that it's really, really weird with the dog whistly stuff. It's the if you ever hear the words social cohesion, okay, run. If whenever you hear the word social cohesion, run away from that conversation, okay? Because it's probably going to go down to that, like, this fundamental understanding that white people just can't get along with brown people, and that brown people being here harms the social cohesion. Oh God. Like, that's, and to be clear, I'm not calling this person racist. I'm not even saying that's the argument he's necessarily making, but boy, is he close, and boy, might he. Oh my God. Social cohesion as a word, just run far, far away.
Expecting a certain thing. They do actually
Why don't you trust them?
they do join things like HOAs because
Why
there
don't
is
you
a,
trust these people?
because there is a social compact in their neighborhoods, and it is actually corrosive to the heart and
Why
soul
don't you
of the
trust
country.
these people?
Can't we be
What
like
about- why
Japan?
wouldn't-
Why can't you follow the rules of the Raging Tomato and shut up for 5 seconds?
Steven, you've done the same thing. With all due respect, I'm asking you.
Jay,
It's all
Jay,
discussion. I just want to know why you don't
doing-
trust
Jay,
these people.
you-
Now,
I know
listen,
you
the
have
both
like
of you
your.
were having a lot of fun bantering backstage, and I think we all had a good time. But let's get to the crux of it. Stephen, finish your thought, and then back to you, Jay.
Yeah, these things matter. You can kind of laugh and hand wave again. Things like zoning, things like overcrowding.
And this is gonna suck too because this is a problem with Sarah's platform too. The removal of the ability to interrupt. I hate it. I love you, Sarah, but oh my god. So okay. The problem is that he's gonna go for like fucking 10 minutes. Okay, not 10 minutes. That's absurd. But like 2 or 5 minutes on this shit, and then all just for RTP to just ask him a question, and then it's gonna be another 5-minute ramble. Why? God help me, why? When this whole response, I promise you, is gonna get ignored because it's not the point.
American communities. I think you're sort of painting this very strange picture of me living in some fancy DC suburb. I live in a really shitty townhome community in Manassas where you're going to step on either a condom or a broken bottle on any time you walk your dog. But like that's life here. And one of the things that's most striking to me is that on my right side, we have a Guatemalan family. On my left side, it's Venezuelans, and then one down.
This dude's also really, really good with rhetoric, by the way. Aside from some of the dog whistle-y stuff, there's a reason that they do the dog whistles though, because they sound good. Like that's the point. It's good rhetoric. This dude's rhetoric is also really, really good. Like, this is a really, really good exchange. I obviously think RTP is winning because I think the thing that they're debating is fairly clear cut, but this is probably the best job that you could do to defend something like this. Is to like kind of distance yourself from some of the nastier stuff, kind of, this vision of making America great again and doing it by, reinstating social cohesion, stuff like that. This is like the best kind of approach that you could get for this.
Mexicans, and then after that Chinese, and then a black family. And every single one of these families, the Venezuelans in particular, immigrated here recently. They are new to the country. They all have, like legal status. They all bought their homes, and they are all Trump voters. And it's like, it's one of these weird things where they're like, we got here, and these people who are coming into this neighborhood.
Yeah, like this guy, like, who cares? What the fuck does this have to do with anything? Please, why couldn't he have just interrupted and asked the real question that hits at the heart of this instead of going off on a ramble about how your neighbors are immigrants and also Trump supporters, even though they're from Honduras? Like, who the fuck cares? It's not relevant. God, I'm being super harsh on this guy, okay? He's fine, all right? He's fine. I want to keep reiterating this. He's fine. I appreciate him. He's a good interlocutor. It's just... Okay. This guy's fine, okay? He's fine.
Are insane. They're overcrowding into homes. We don't know these like 20 guys who lived in the townhome next door to our daughters. I remember the Venezuelan woman next door to me. She came over.
See, with all due
No,
respect,
I am going to
I don't need
finish.
hear the
Jay.
stories of
No,
all your
you're going to
neighbors.
fucking
Can we
listen to
get
the
to the
story.
I
You're going to
will
fucking
say,
listen to the story.
let me
Because
add in,
this
it is
important.
fairly anecdotal, right?
No, this is important.
It is
We
fairly
have 2
anecdotal.
hours to do this shit.
But land the plane.
I'm going to land the plane. I just remember this Venezuelan woman coming over with her daughter and using her to translate and just going like, we didn't come here to have 20 guys from Guatemala packed into the house next door who we don't know and we don't trust. Like, these things actually matter to people who come here and immigrate to this country as well. And you just want to keep having these MSNBC conversations about immigration bills in Congress. And I'm trying to talk about brass tacks.
So yes, he's actually just ignoring all of this and ignoring all of the data, ignoring all of the actual implementation, and being like, oh well, my neighbors are immigrants and they feel real uncomfortable with it. Like, they all voted for Donald Trump. I respect this approach way, way, way less. Because it's literally just rhetoric over facts. It's like whenever you devolve into this, it's either because you're stupid or because you know that the facts are against you, so you just have to rhetoric your way out of it. And I know for a fact this guy's not stupid. I respect that a lot less. If RTP could get a few mainstream interviews with conservatives or a big show like Piers Morgan, he'd blow up. Easy. You just want to talk about how the politics are. How dare you? True.
Brass tacks. Brass tacks is the legislation. You want to tell me more stories about your neighbor that we can't even verify, and how for some reason these Venezuelan immigrants are upset about these Guatemalan immigrants that have too many people in the house. We're supposed to talk about is this helping or hurting? This is silly. Like I gave you so many numbers in there. Economically, it's a net positive that we have illegal immigration here. It keeps Medicaid afloat, it keeps Medicare afloat, it keeps Social Security afloat. And getting rid of all these people will be a net loss to our economy. And you want to tell me more about your neighbor's feelings? The problem with America is we're too driven by feelings. That's what allows somebody from Venezuela to be like, I'm a Trump supporter. That's insane. The reason that people are here from Venezuela is because Donald Trump staged a coup in Venezuela to try and overthrow their president. And when that didn't work out,
I don't know what that is. Never heard that, but okay.
he decided, like, we're not going to buy your oil anymore. And that was 80% of their economy. 80% of their economy is oil. And we buy 50% of that. We crashed their economy overnight. And it was so bad that on Trump's way out the door, he wrote a special executive order saying, due to our actions in Venezuela, these Venezuelan citizens
we're going to land the plane about a Venezuelan coup attempt.
And by the way, it's real policy. So to tell me like these Venezuelan immigrants who are only here because Donald Trump fucked up their country is a good argument. I think that everybody that's here that is here illegally, that's working, should be granted amnesty. And I gave you numbers and figures to back that up. And you're telling me stories that nobody can verify. And you're telling me I'm MSNBC. You sound like you're on a CNN panel. I'm talking about real legislation.
Yes,
don't MSNBC me.
true.
I'm begging you to talk numbers, and you want to tell me more about what your neighbors think.
True.
No hug after this one.
Oh my god, this dude is the GOAT. I love this guy. Trump did try that. I just don't know much about it. I believe you. I mean, this dude's killing it so far. So I mean, I'm more likely to trust him. I was really hoping you'd show up for the RTP debate. Listen, I wanted to. Okay. Fuck, what was happening? My cousin was in. When was this? Was this on the 4th of July? Wait, hold on. My cousin was in town all this weekend, so I couldn't. If it was on the 4th of July, I had parties. But man, I saw this happening, and I really, really wanted to, but couldn't. But I fuck with this guy. Ryan Reynolds got stomped. So far, holy shit. He's debating Andrew Wilson on Friday. Oh boy. On Sarah? Or just in general? Or on the Crucible? Whatever the case is, this dude's awesome. I love this guy.
I'll still hug him.
I mean, this guy just said that that Donald Trump wrecked Venezuela. I just would like everybody in the audience to
Well, I'm
remember.
curious how he handles Andrew Wilson. Dude, just this thing. The problem with I feel like this guy might kind of be the kryptonite for Andrew Wilson, and this is why I've kind of kicked around the idea of reaching out to Andrew Wilson for a debate, is that Andrew Wilson is really, really good at pigeonholing people into philosophical conversations, but from every conversation I've seen, he absolutely fucking flounders at the second any amount of empirics is entered into a conversation. Like whenever you really dig deep into either legal, like litigation, legal talk, or whenever you really delve into empirics, he crashes. So I have a feeling that RTP is going to be, from what I've seen, is going to be really, really good at this, or really, really good at talking to Andrew. Yeah. It's just a matter of if he can dictate the conversation more than Andrew can dictate the conversation.
At this moment, so
Why do you write the executive order then on his way out the door?
what?
Oh, you don't know about the executive order he wrote on the way out the door that gave TPS to Venezuelans because of our actions in Venezuela?
Oh yeah, no, you're talking about temporary protection.
Yeah, why do you do that?
Mostly because a lot of Venezuelans who come here are going to be anti-socialist, and he wants to put them into the Republican voting base.
Why were they coming here?
Because Venezuela has been a socialist hellhole for a long time, and
True, so it's how you pin him, though. You have to have some strategies for that. Yeah, you need to be able to kind of big bull, like throw your dick around in the conversation and be able to guide him down where you want him to go instead of letting Andrew dictate that conversation. And that's why, I mean, a really, really big struggle of talking to him. So far, it feels like RTP could do that, though. I mean, like I haven't found a flaw in his game other than like right at the end of his opening statement, he sounded a little callous. But I mean, who am I to call somebody out for sounding callous?
Nothing to do with us not buying their oil anymore?
I mean, we don't have to buy anybody's oil.
I know we don't, but when we stop buying their oil and it tanks their economy, guess what? They don't have anywhere to go. So they show up here.
I do want to try to get off of Venezuela here because
I would like you to answer that question.
This is a bizarre side trail.
Every time we get close to an answer, you run from. I want to know why they're here.
Oh my god, pressing people to answer the question. Dude, this guy is like, I've needed something like this. I've needed somebody like this.
Why did so many Venezuelans show up at our border? What happened in their country? If it wasn't what I said, that we staged a coup, by the way, you can look that up. It was legitimately a United States military contractor. They got caught trying to stage the coup. And then the response to that was, we're going to stop buying your oil. And we stopped buying their oil and it tanked their economy. Go look it up.
Maybe they shouldn't nationalize their oil.
Why shouldn't they nationalize their oil? We should force capitalism on them. They can't even make
Or
their
a
own
registered
decisions now.
Republican or something.
They can't make their own decisions. We have to tell them, you can't nationalize your oil. And if you do, and you don't let BP come down there and sell your oil, then we're going to cut off oil purchases from you, and we're going to destroy your economy.
I have a question for you about the GDP issue from your opening statement.
Sure.
Do you actually care about American GDP? Because I watch some of your streams. I do enjoy some of your tangents and rants. And I find it odd to me sometimes when
he likes to do the Jordan Peterson thing. Yeah, but Andrew's a lot better at it than Jordan Peterson is. Like, genuinely, whenever Jordan Peterson does it's just so. I assume you're talking about Andrew. When he does the Jordan Peterson thing, it's just so much better. When Jordan Peterson does it, it's like so transparent and super clear what he's trying to do. He will stand on some abstract absurdities and will sometimes the best you can do just get him to stall on an abstract stance that's absolutely stupid. It kind of feels like that's the idea. It's just way easier said than done to do that. I don't know. The problem is that I don't think you can really come out of a debate with Andrew Wilson realistically looking optically worse, as long as you know what Andrew Wilson argues and what kind of thoughts of, like trails of thought he goes down. And that's why I don't know if Andrew Wilson will really break out into the mainstream, is because of his like super philosophical logical background. He's willing to bite bullets that are absolutely unconscionable to a lot of people. So he's not good at the rhetoric. He's just really good at dominating a conversation. I don't think the dude on the right was prepared. No, no, he wasn't. Andrew asked non-empirical questions like, what is a woman? Then, like the what is a woman thing. And then when they can't answer, he does some righteous grandstanding for a clip. Yeah. But if you can manage to nail him down on either legality and get him to say that he doesn't give a fuck about legality, like Destiny did on Piers Morgan, or if you can pin him down on some level of empirics that, contradicts one of his worldviews, then you're pretty much golden.
Folks come out of the left sort of just charging towards the economic argument about sort of America's capitalistic economy and, oh, whoa, the GDP. And I just kind of don't believe you actually care about that, because you don't view the system as legitimate anyways, but yet you want these.
Wait, I don't view the system
workers
as legitimate. What do you mean by that?
No, you strike me as someone who does not view the capitalist economy of the United States as legitimate.
We don't have a capitalist. We have a mixed economy. It's a fucking stupid thing that everybody in this world does, including socialists. Economy, The socialists do it and the capitalists do it. You guys always argue about what's better. There's not a single country on earth that has a capitalist economy or a socialist one. They're all fucking mixed.
Do you care about
Kinda, but I mean, like, we're a capitalist economy. Like, we are a mixed economy, but we're capitalists. Like, come on. I think the dude on the right is very clearly asking, like, this particular economy, do you think that's righteous?
I advocate for the best solutions, and you're now just casting aspersions on what you think I believe, rather than addressing any of these arguments, Stephen. I just don't know why you're not engaging in any of the arguments.
You want to see RTP debate Rob? Oh my god, yes, I do too. I mean, it's a possibility they both got connections through Sarah.
That's my feelings.
It's a new argument.
Sarah, please, for the love of God, please set that up.
Do you care about GDP taking a hit?
Yes.
Why?
Because GDP taking a hit in this case would mean that farmers lose their farms, and that farmland inevitably is going to be bought up by corporations who are going to do factory farming. Where's the capital going to come from when we can't export their goods, when they lose all their money? We're either going to have to bail them out, or we're going to have to take capital from corporations who are going to do corporate farming, which is going to give us less nutritious food that is nutrient lacking and meat filled with hormones. Isn't this the Maha movement?
I thought this was already happening. One of the things
it is, and I would like to undo that. And so I thought you guys were on board with that.
I'd have to see. I feel like there's a better answer as to why GDP matters, and it's just that, like, it matters that the government is making money. It may not be as, like, rhetorically effective, but, like, it matters that the government is making money and that the people within our country are making money. Gross domestic product is good. Hot take. Having an expanding economy is good because it has a correlation with rising, quality of life. That's good. That's why GDP matters, is that it correlates to a better quality of life for the citizens.
One of the things that I think my politics have evolved in the past couple of years, and really being
to a certain extent, obviously,
skeptical about this, is just like how much of a house of cards our economy is, all the way down to things like farming and how we get food onto our shelves. And I was kind of throwing a stone at you earlier about, like, oh, who's going to pick the crops, because this kind of comes up a lot in the issue of immigration, and it alludes to basically a two-tiered society where we have all these kind of legal, documented workers and citizens who all have things like, well, hopefully some kind of health insurance, and they have some sort of affordability in their lives. And then we have these people who I think Bernie Sanders.
Rob Noor's primary tactic: immediately concede that Trump or whoever is bad, and then bring out some deep cherry-picked fact that proves that Dems are actually worse. Kind of. So I think Rob's primary tactic is actually just poisoning the well, saying the person that you are going to see is going to give this argument and then give a strawman version of that argument and then say that he's an unserious debater for that reason and then try and pigeonhole them into a way that Dems are actually worse and that Trump's actually isn't as bad as it's portrayed to you as. That's going to be 99% of Rob Noor debates.
Used to recognize a little bit more clearly, which is the folks coming in, being paid just incredibly substandard wages, and also allowing agriculture and farmers and producers to produce goods that are artificially cheap for the American economy, and making Americans think that this thing that they have, this system.
When you say artificially cheap, do you mean cheap? What makes that artificial?
They actually are getting prices that are reflective of the goods that they buy. I've grown to really have sort of a spiritual problem with this. I think it is a real rot in the heart of America. And so when you talk to me about GDP taking a hit and you talk about family farms and even big farms like taking this big hit because they lose their workers, I'm kind of at a point.
So also the problem with this is that you could say that that's an unsatisfactory thing to you, and that's fine. I may even have some room to agree with you. The problem is that your solution to this problem is to send them back to their home country or not allow them in the United States. Like, life as an illegal immigrant in the United States is going to be better than where they're at necessarily because they came to the United States. They chose to be here. They chose to come here knowing what comes with the processes as an illegal immigrant. You are denying them that. So what RTP is arguing for, this kind of the way that you categorize it as this two-tier system is exactly what they're coming for, in addition to a path to citizenship. I don't understand how that's necessarily worse than the idea of just sending them back to their home country that they were trying to escape in the first place.
Where I think that might be for the higher good of the United States.
Corporations doing all our farming?
No. So I would like to. Jay, I'd like to try to do a good faith conversation here for a minute.
I know. I'm going to ask you a question. If these farms go under, and you say it's for the greater good, who's going to buy those? Who's going to buy up those farms? Who's going to manufacture farm produce? Who's going to do that?
No, like you said, probably corporations.
Okay.
Yeah. No, but
do you think that's better for us?
Well, that's a separate argument. I think one of
it's
the
not a separate argument.
No,
it's another.
That's the crux of his argument.
We always take. We hurt farmers and we hand it off to the capitalists, the free market capitalists, the vulture capitalists, and then they don't pay anybody a decent wage. Nobody is able to make any sort of generational wealth, and we all become employees to a handful of oligarchs.
You are a master of like the shotgun scattershot. There's so many arguments that you could pick up on.
It'd be nice if you would address any of them. Just pick one.
Well, a little thing for you. If you actually shot, one shot at a time, it could.
There should be a universally accepted outcome, like based outcome, universally accepted outcome-based metric beside GDP. Since we don't have anything like that, we get hang-ups like inflation as people try to describe what they feel. Yeah, but that's really, I mean, like, easier said than done. Consumer purchasing power is a good econ metric, but it's hard to pin down. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the problem. Like, we can think of theoretical stats that could describe the economy better. And obviously GDP, like, trying to describe a whole economy within one number is probably misguided because it's necessarily going to not reflect the entire economy, sure. And it's easier to think of ways to do it other than GDP, but the problem is, like you said, it's either going to be hard to pin down, or it's going to feel shallow, or it's not going to feel representative. The hard answer is you're not going to find one number that represents an entire economy. But as like a snapshot of the economy, or like one quick number to like kind of sort of point you in the right direction, GDP is not a bad one. But I mean, yeah, it'd be great. I agree that there's like, if we all had a universally accepted metric that dictates the goodness of an economy, that we should use it. But I mean, if we had a cure for cancer, we should use it too.
Be responded to, but you don't do that.
I'll slow down.
Well, you should try to not do that. I do want to stick on this though, because the issue of like the actual value of our goods that are created in this economy, I think it is actually bad for us to continue to go down this path where things are artificially cheap and created on substandard labor in conditions that are just not reflective of, I think, anything that Americans actually want or expect out of their economy. It's not good.
But it's what it's what these people prefer. It's what these people want over being sent back like you want. Like, RTP should ask this question. Do you think that those working standards are better than deporting them?
Is a rot in the heart of this country.
So we should deport everybody?
Oh my god. Bro, I didn't pre-watch the Mind Waves. Oh my god. The Mind Waves. Me and RTP. Holy fuck.
Well, what we need to do is we need to respond to the will of the voters and deport people
Steven,
who
come
don't
on,
have.
link your fucking argument, please. Link it. You can't just. I'm not asking you your beliefs on other shit. We're talking about. We're talking about immigration.
No, continue. Debate yourself. Go ahead.
Okay. All right.
I'm asking. Link, can you link? That's what I'm asking. So we should deport them. That's the solution.
Yes.
How does that? How does that?
How does that help their? How does that help their conditions? You're saying, oh well, we're working people with really, really immoral conditions. Okay, should we deport them? Do you think that would be better for them? Yeah. Really?
What's your goal?
Well, my goal is to actually try to heal some of the political fabric in this country where people believe that this is a representative democracy.
Talking about cheap goods, Stephen. You were talking about cheap goods.
Well, you asked me about my
you said we
goal.
want to fix this production of cheap goods. We're talking about immigration. That's what this debate is. I'm wondering how mass deportation would fix the problem that you're just addressing of cheap goods.
Oh, things will get more expensive. In case you're not following, things will get more.
Good?
Well,
yeah. How does the American voter feel about that, Stephen? The other problem is that people won't ever defer to a broad metric over their own experience and gut feelings. I will.
it's going to be really freaking painful for this country to understand just how subsidized their goods are by cheap illegal labor, and I would say unethical labor. And again, this is not an argument that I enjoy.
Then what?
This is not an
Once
argument
everything gets more expensive,
making.
then what?
Once everything gets more expensive, then what?
You live with it.
What you're saying? We're going to deport the labor. Everything will get more expensive. People will realize that things were too cheap. Then what?
Yeah, so then I think actually once you go through a period of people understanding how things get made in this country, I think you can actually get public opinion in this country back to a point where there is more support for immigration. You sort of actually have to do a little bit of knocking one leg out of the stool for people to understand how this country works. Immigration and support for it is declining year over year over year. We actually, like I said, need to get it back to a point where it goes up. There is no better way to do that in a healthy way and to encourage immigration reform and a legal process.
Also, yeah, I just thought about this. If this guy supports bringing in enough legal immigrants to where we triple the size of our economy in order to keep up with people like China, how is that not going to harm social cohesion in the same way that he was like, do you think we have the zoning laws to accommodate all of those legal immigrants?
Then enforcing the law on illegal immigrants, actually reducing the amount of all these different sectors to subsidize their goods with cheap labor, make things more expensive, and bring Americans a little bit back to the reality, which is that immigrant labor is very valuable in this country. We would just like them to have paperwork. That's all.
So why not give them amnesty?
I mean, we mentioned that in the beginning of this conversation. I'm generally in favor of a pathway to citizenship. It's common sense to me, but that is
why
not
deport people and not do amnesty.
And that's just not what's happening. This motion is
I
about.
know. I'm asking you why you don't support amnesty rather than this way.
So I support, in a perfect world where I can wave a magic wand, I would probably do amnesty, and then I would do some sort of aggressive process of going over everybody's criminal records and any trouble that they've gotten into in the United States once they're in the system, and then they are thus removed. But again, that's not the world that we live in. We're talking about deportations that are happening in the Trump administration, whether or not they're a net good or a net bad.
That didn't answer the question. Why? Like, are you saying that it's too exhaustive? Why not advocate for amnesty instead of these mass deportations, especially when the direct result is polar opposite from each other? Like, these kind of deportations, these mass deportations, expedited process, are dissuading people from legally immigrating into the country. It's a W that a lot of Trump supporters cite. This is like directly antithetical to what you're arguing for.
And the deportations, I believe, are a net good because this country is actually in a democracy crisis. On the level of people actually believing that their vote in this country counts and believing that this system responds to their desires. It's also a hugely corrosive thing to have illegal.
So in a roundabout way, you're just adding that we need to restore democracy in the middle, but you're literally just saying this is why Trump won. I'm a bit of a doomer. I think the natural intelligence curve of the population won't support expert input into political discourse anymore. Not right now, because like all of the faith of our institutions and our experts are completely fucking dead. Yeah. But I mean, it's not irreconcilable. Like, we could bring it back. I just see conservatives debating and they're so stupid it's depressing. Yeah. Yeah, in a roundabout way, this dude's literally just making like the it's democratic so it's good argument. Like, oh, this is what the people voted for. He's just saying that the people voted for it, and this, if we deliver on that, it restores democracy and so it's good. But it's the same argument. But him coming out and saying, well, the people voted for it, so it must be good. Everyone would be like, wow, who the fuck is this dude? Like, that's so stupid. But for some reason, if you add that extra step of like, and it would restore democracy too, that makes it good somehow.
Illegal immigrants being counted in states like California, for example, where they would probably lose at least 2 seats of their 52 seats in Congress if they were not.
How many
able...
would they lose in Texas?
I don't know.
2. How many would they lose in Florida?
I don't know.
1.5.
Yeah, they're going
Why
to.
do you only? It's weird how you only bring up California. I'd like to go back to this
No,
again.
it's
What you're saying right now.
seats,
What you're saying right now is
where
that
people live.
we're doing mass deportation. That you don't agree with it. You prefer amnesty, but there's a problem.
I do agree with it.
Americans think that there's an immigration problem. So in order to regain Americans' trust, we need to do mass deportations. I have an alternate solution.
Matt also says, like, well, what if the mainstream media was like convincing all of these people, and the top leading Republican candidate was convincing all of the people that, you know, Jews were controlling the bank? Would you say that, well, you know, this country needs its democracy restored, so, you know, delivering on that promise that the voters voted you in for to get rid of the Jews running the banks, you know, that's what you were here voted for, and the people need to feel like they're the people need to feel like their needs are being met, that their vote matters. It's like, that doesn't fucking matter. No. that has nothing to do with the goodness or badness of a particular policy. They're always TikToking their way through reality and never have a bird's eye view, historical references, or any source material, except for like the superficial talking points that they have that generally vaguely posture towards old times. You kind of learn that that's a Republican strategy through, you know, well, you know, the Democrats started the KKK, and do you remember the electors in 1960? Okay.
How about Republicans stop fucking lying about everything? Everything. How about they stop lying about who was coming to the border? That those weren't illegal immigrants, that those were asylum seekers. How about we stop lying about the fact that we're only going to go after violent criminals when 75% of the arrests that happened in LA, non-violent criminals. 70% of the people that were thrown in prison in El Salvador have no criminal history outside of being here illegally, and they're getting life sentences in El Salvador. How about that? Why don't you guys just stop fucking lying so that the people in America aren't so goddamn confused? The problem that we have is Donald Trump's a liar, and every Republican is a cuck sitting in the chair with their dick in their hand saying, Donald Trump, fuck this country harder, please. Keep lying, and we'll just lie for you. We'll just repeat all your dumbass lies. We'll repeat the lie that they're eating people's pets. We'll repeat the lie that they're only sending their worst. We'll repeat the lie that there were migrant caravans of military-aged men coming to our border to invade us. We'll repeat the lie of the replacement theory. We'll just scare you guys into allowing us to deport people rather than tell the truth. When are you guys, you're talking about morality, when are you guys going to start being honest?
That's not important at all, morality.
I think honesty is important. I think that the biggest problem we have in this country is currently that Republicans lie about everything. They lied about the big, beautiful bill. They lie about deportation. In fact, I can't think of a thing Republicans aren't lying about. They lie about everything. Why don't you guys start there? Stop electing a guy that literally cannot tell the truth. He can't do it. He still can't say he lost it in 2020. And Republicans aren't allowed to say it.
Yes,
if they go before Congress and they say, did Trump win in 2020? They're like, oh, I'm not going to answer that.
I appreciate you saying that trust in institutions and experts can come back. I hope you're right. Yeah, it's just the problem of like trying to weed out this conspiratorial thinking. We gave a lot of light to the conspiracy theorists and the conspiratorial way of thinking, and we just need to find a way to make it so people don't think so conspiratorially anymore, which is a really tall task, but I think it's possible. I don't know how though. I don't know how to install the fact that maybe some of the FBI's operations probably should be separate from the public eye. Maybe we shouldn't have the public second guessing the FBI at every single step. And maybe we shouldn't be like giving highly classified, highly confidential information to the public all the time. And maybe they should be able to like open an investigation and without like constantly announcing when they're opening and closing investigations, because that might compromise the investigations. Things like that are kind of hard to install, but I feel like they're possible. It would help if Republicans would stop lying about everything. That's true. And like, it is really, really compelling to say like, oh, you know, this thing that can't possibly be known that we don't know. Don't you think that could have been malicious? Isn't it weird that there was a Jewish guy dancing on top of one of the buildings right as soon as 9/11 happened? Like, the conspiratorial thinking is really, really compelling, and that was a hyperbolic example. But like, isn't it weird that that they prosecuted Donald Trump for classified documents, but they let Joe Biden off the hook for his classified documents? Like, it's really easy to ask these kind of conspiratorial questions, and have it sound compelling because no one has the time to do the reading, one, and the FBI doesn't release all of their material to where you can take all of the evidence and come to a conclusion. But there's no trust there. But you kind of have to explain to people like there's a reason for that. It's just tough. It's just tough because telling people to blindly trust something is really, really hard. But yeah, I don't know.
Everybody's so cut.
It doesn't help that some of our institutions genuinely do have a pretty fucked up background. So, like, there's a reason that public trust is pretty eroded in these institutions as well. Like, how to fix it, I don't know, but I feel like it's conceptually possible.
To Donald Trump. That's the problem that we have in this country, is we can't have real conversations until one party stops lying about everything.
You hear that, chat? Everybody's cucked and everybody's lying. Everything that you feel, and you look around your communities and you look around the country,
Oh
you feel
my
like it is
God.
not the same, that you don't know your neighbors, that people aren't speaking English in places where it would be obvious and common sense. The quality of your public schools is absolutely the same.
And this is part of the problem too. Like, RTP has given nothing but empirics, nothing but facts, that he's like, you hear that, guys? Your personal experience is invalidated. Did you hear that? When you look around at your communities and you see them being destroyed, that's not real. That's the only response that they have. It's just rhetoric. There's no actual engagement with material reality at all. It's upsetting. That's all they have. And I thought that this debate would go better because his opening statement was pretty salient. It was like, all right. But I should have known. There's no way to defend it other than just doing the weird nativist rhetoric that he criticized right at the very beginning. Don't you feel like your communities are disappearing from you because of all of these immigrants?
Same as it was in the 1990s and 80s when you grew up. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed.
And also, why do you say that you're in favor of mass immigration as long as it's legal, but then you're pointing to the nativist rhetoric? Like, don't you feel like your communities that you were used to in the 1950s and the 1960s are being torn away from you? What was different in the 1950s and the 1960s?
It has nothing at all to do.
This is the dog whistle. I'm starting to not actually believe anything that he says that he believes in. To criticize the nativist rhetoric and saying like, oh, well, this might actually lead to a nationalist politician being elected, and then doing don't you miss when your communities look like they did in the 60s? What is that? What kind of that? Oh, I just fucking inhaled my hair. Holy fuck. That's exactly what you're doing. I hate the commentators who ask questions. You're a fucking commentator. We're supposed to be hearing answers from you. How do you not know the answer? Yeah, true.
An unprecedented influx of migrants from around the world, and particularly south of the border.
Agreed. So why? So let's talk about public education. I live in Arizona. We are ranked 50th in public education. And you can look at the decline of Arizona education, where we've had immigrants for as long as Arizona's been around.
Mm-hmm.
When did the decline happen in Arizona? When did we start falling? School choice, Stephen. It bankrupted our schools. It bankrupted public schools. It underfunded public schools. And now we're ranked 50th. And who's number 49? Oklahoma, who is also doing school choice. But the easy thing to do, Stephen, is to blame immigrants and be like, look at those people who aren't speaking our same language.
Yes.
They're the problem. It couldn't possibly be that Republicans turn everything into profit, so they don't want public
education
to be
scatter
good.
shot again.
They have to have a profit motive for public.
So many things. So many things. Now we're talking about school choice in Arizona. Oh my God.
Talking about 20 things, and I chose one: public education. And now I'm explaining how red states suck at education because of this. But you blame it on immigrants because you just let your politicians lie. The immigrants didn't cause the problems in your schools, Stephen. It was Republicans who won't fund the schools.
You keep
giving
having a debate with somebody who's not actually here in the room with us. I would like to know, is like Rick Santorum in the room? Like,
sorry, did you bring up schools or not, Stephen?
I brought up schools, and I brought
did you blame immigrants for that?
I know that you're very used to this sort of like
yes,
Twitch,
he
like,
did.
Bare knuckle brawling kind of thing.
Yes, he did.
I'm not really interested. I would actually like to
try to answer that question.
I'd like to try to
finish. Did you blame
immigrants
immigrants for it or not?
So what I was saying was that
talk about something else.
I'm just gonna sit back. I've lost interest.
Let's reset the panel.
He doesn't. The problem is that this guy is really frustrated that he can't dictate the conversation. Like, when he's held to answering questions, his worldview falls apart. So if he can't do the fucking 5-minute monologue where he paints these fucking stupid pictures, like, don't you miss when everything was sunshine and rainbows, when everyone around you was white? Like, when he can't do these long diatribes about literally just rhetoric, when he actually has to engage with any of the material facts on the ground, he just throws his hands up and refuses to engage. Fuck. That's, yeah. Poor RTP.
Chat, don't forget, we have a good cause going, and I will be grifting hard for the next couple weeks. Our lovely Nix, my dog, 11 years old, blew her knee out this weekend and will need surgery. So please feel free to continue sending those super chats. And don't forget to hit the like button. There's 400 of you watching and only 112 likes. I'm very disappointed. Gentlemen, I'd like to kind of like stir it back to maybe the initial opening statements. If there's something in there you want to dig back into specifically, I know we talked about the farming. I know that was a big piece of it. I would be interested in learning more about that in terms of the like how much we're losing versus how much we're gaining. We kind of tapped into it, but then we lost that piece. If maybe you want to start there, or if there's something else better you'd want to kick off with.
Jay always has something to talk about.
I do.
You guys are
I
getting
do.
along
And,
so well
yeah.
backstage. What happened?
Well, I
Was
think what we're seeing here is that Steve doesn't want to answer questions. That's what we're seeing right now. Doesn't want to have a conversation. But I'll cover that. If
Oh,
you want to look at
you hear that,
undocumented-
chat? I don't want to have a conversation. Yes.
So
Steven,
maybe
you got
let's
mad that I asked
kick
you a
off.
question.
He doesn't want to engage in any of the actual. He's yes. Never mind. I was gonna try and rephrase. No, yeah, you don't want to have a conversation. You don't want to actually engage with anything that the person is saying, and you just want to have this competition on who can paint a prettier picture for 5 minutes in a row, and you don't actually want to have any cross-examination. So yes, you don't want to actually have a conversation. You just want to paint pretty pictures about how beautiful your white neighborhoods in the 60s were. Yes.
You
Let's
wouldn't
kick
answer it.
off
This is
with
ridiculous.
maybe like one piece at a time, and let's keep it like Q&A style. We can go yes and no, or yes and no and and maybe we can bring it back together there. Let's try that.
Well, I would say this. The cost of illegal immigration seems to be, by most estimates, around $50 billion a year. Illegal immigrants bring in $100 billion a year in revenue. They are a net positive economically. So in order for me to want to get rid of illegal immigrants, I'm going to have to see some harm. And it seems to me that most of the harm that Republicans are telling us about are their feelings. Their feelings are harmed. And so we have to make economic sacrifices to cater to the feelings of some Republicans who don't like that their communities look different.
Yes.
Yeah, my argument is not about the money that they bring in and how much we can extract value from these individuals who come into this country and work substandard and cheap labor.
Man, people always jump to the meta conversation when they can't handle the conversation. Yep. This conversation is so bad. Yep.
My argument is actually about rules. It is
Hey,
about
I do that too. Moderator is rescuing him from that topic. Yeah, because he just... I mean, I would probably do the same thing if I was Sarah, because he literally just said, oh, well... And then just like threw his hands up and refused to engage with it. So yeah, I would probably do the same thing, because this conversation was going to go in the absolute shitter if this guy's actually forced to answer literally anything.
process. It's about what people think is right. And the immigration system in this country has outstripped what people think and expect from people coming in here.
And the whole argument is based around, well, the people voted for it, so that means it's good. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
And joining their communities.
I don't know. Did this guy stick around for the open panel? He did. What did he do when he can't just filibuster for 5 minutes straight?
In their workplaces, working their farms. This is not what people voted for, and it is undemocratic the way that this is played out. I don't really care about the dollars and cents of this, and I hope that you find that as like a token of respect that I'm saying that to you. Because what I find frustrating in debates about this stuff is when people gaslight their way.
Cue the... I assume that's supposed to be satire quote. Conservatives debate for spectacle. If they cared, we'd be talking about the process. They are cheering on camps. Yeah. Yep. At this point, I would literally just be saying, like, hey, I would literally just be reading from the Garcia indictment at this point. Like, okay, if we just want to paint pictures about how pretty your society looks, I'm just going to paint pictures about how disgusting yours looks too. Like, oh, it's so pretty, all the zoning laws are being perfectly adhered to. Meanwhile, all of these prisoners are being stripped down and beaten if they don't put their clothes on fast enough, and they're being forced to kneel for 10 hours straight, and if they fall from exhaustion, then they'll be beaten by the police officers, and that, people are losing 12 pounds for a matter of a couple months. The answer to this is probably just be painting like disgusting pictures about what mass deportations actually look like. Or just saying, like, these kind of things are going to be causing, people to be going to the grocery store and not being able to afford their groceries, like some shit like that. Jean-Paul. Oh, okay, my bad. Okay.
Through debates, and they pretend to care about every single element of an issue when they don't. Again, like, I still don't believe that you care about GDP. I could be wrong. I don't care about this. I don't care about that. I actually just care about the process, the fact that people are here illegally. They're not supposed to be, and that it is wrong, and that they have to go.
You don't care about the process. Anybody who cares, Don't let any conservative, any Trump supporter ever say that they care about the process. They don't give a fuck about the process, okay? They don't care about the process because if they did, they would be throwing up in their mouth about what Donald Trump is doing to our process. He's literally robbing people of their due process rights. You don't give a fuck about the process. You're lying.
And that the United States has a right to deport people who are in their country without their consent.
Look, it falls on deaf ears when you're like, it's about rules, and you elected a felon, and it's about rules.
I said that earlier. I love this guy. Oh my God, RTP, you are saving me. Oh my God. Right as soon as I'm like, dude, these pictures, I just want to fucking leave. There's no point to watching this debate. He says what I'm thinking. Oh my God, RTP, I love you.
But they lied to you right to your face. Pam Bondi and Donald Trump lied right to your face and said, Abrego Garcia, he got due process. He got it. And he clearly...
Oh my God. Someone, maybe it was RTP, brought up how maggots would react if Mexico was treating migrants from the U.S. the way that they are, and it's probably the most straightforward way to understand the malice. Oh, yeah, that's true. That's really smart. Oh, yeah. Damn, that's smart.
Didn't. And they lie to you all the time about the law. They're breaking the law. The Supreme Court ruled 9-0 that they're breaking the law. They lie to you when they tell you that these people did break the law that came in under Biden, and they didn't. They're amnesty seekers. Again, when you say like, oh, I don't believe you care about GDP, I don't fucking care. Like, I'm a numbers person. I'm looking at the numbers. I don't care if you think I care about it or not. But for you to have the audacity to say, I care about the process and I care about the law. Get the fuck out of here. You can't be a Trump person and care about the law. You can't be a Trump person after he pardons all these J6ers and then be like,
dude, I need to talk to him. I need to talk to this guy. Somebody, please let me talk to this guy. Holy fuck. I love this guy so much. Oh my God.
like, look at these riots in LA. Can you believe it? We got it. These people are crazy. I just don't believe you. I think, Stephen, that you came underprepared for this debate and you're trying to go back on your feelings. And you don't want to debate the numbers because it's pretty evident that you don't have any numbers to back up what you're saying. So you're doing what I would probably do too. I'd say, I don't want to talk about the numbers. I'd like to talk about the law and what's right and what's wrong. But you guys, you tend to not care so much when
Nah, find the hottest, the whitest, hottest illegal and have her story with sad music. Yeah, true.
when the law is right or wrong, when it's your people breaking the law.
I mean, I don't know anything about Trump voters and Trump supporters and voting for lawless Republicans.
Oh my fucking God. You
again are like miscasting me and strawmanning me for fun.
Wait, did he vote for Trump? Is he not defending Trump in this debate? What?
But I actually
Did you not just bring up the election that all these people voted for this? Those are Trump voters, right?
I do.
Yes, true. I love this guy. I love this guy. I love him. I love him. I love him. I love him. Oh my God.
Actually think that a lot of people who are in our audience today and watching, when I was running for city council last year and just meeting people in my area, there are people who pretend that they care about certain economic questions, the dollars and cents, but most people actually just care about a moral principle or a principle of what they bring to every single policy. And there is a right or wrong thing that actually matters here. When people come into your country uninvited, overstay their welcome.
Did we get to the littering part yet? No. What? Oh God. Oh boy.
Won't leave, and then when you try to make them leave, they burn down a couple of blocks of Los Angeles.
What they burn down? What blocks did they burn down in Los Angeles, Steve?
Torch the Waymos.
Which blocks?
Actually,
that's what I'm talking about. You're lying.
There's a good because I see what's going on. We bring up a thought and then we kind of like stray into the weeds. Stephen, you mentioned
no, Sarah. Don't. Straying into the weeds is the whole point. Okay, if you're building a house on dog shit foundation, it's a bad house. Okay, if you're painting a picture and all of the details are bullshit, then that's not a good picture to paint. It's not getting into the weeds to say, okay, you brought up detail 1, detail 2, and detail 3 for the reason that you feel this way, but detail 1 isn't true, detail 2 isn't true, detail 3 isn't true. That's not getting into the weeds.
the moral portion of things. I'd like to break that down between the two of you and break down the morality between either coming into a country uninvited or even more so booting somebody out who is not legally here. There's a moral foundation built into that. Can the two of you find that foundation and break it down on why it's moral or immoral in either direction?
Yeah, I think Jay could find some, but I'm not sure RTP Talks can. So I'm curious which version of yourself.
Stupid, man.
I'm not sure which version of yourself will actually answer that question.
Keep casting those aspersions, Stephen. Well done.
I will.
Yeah, I think that it is immoral to come into this country illegally.
And also, like, this guy, he's doing like the conservative thing of like, I was nothing but nice to you because he's like calm, but like, literally the only thing he's had to offer is like anecdotal bullshit and personal attacks. That's literally it.
I think that it is immoral to come here and overstay your visa, which 90% of the people that are here came here legally and overstayed their visas. I think that that in itself is immoral. That's fine. I also find it immoral and more immoral to rip families apart when there are better solutions. The thing about the Republicans is they love to talk about the morality of like, oh, we've got to keep our laws. Well, we can also change our laws. We don't have to use these laws. We could change them. We could do what Ronald Reagan did. Ronald Reagan gave amnesty to 3 million people. And guess what? Those people committed crimes at lower rate. It increased the tax revenue that was coming in. It increased workers. It bolstered local economies. We've done this before. We could do it again. But the problem that I have is the people claiming the moral high ground are literally being inhumane. They are deporting people. They're putting them in Alligator Alcatraz, which is a dumb name, but it's already leaking. If a hurricane comes through there, they won't be treated well. The lack of humanity while claiming morals blows my fucking mind. I can agree that it's immoral to break the law, but that's a misdemeanor. It's as immoral as any other misdemeanor.
Yep. What about breaking the
No, I think
Okay. The misdemeanor was immoral. Yeah, we could say that the misdemeanor that broke the law was immoral. What about breaking the Constitution? Do you think that's more immoral? Oh my God.
I think we agree, again, that it would be better if this country would do comprehensive immigration reform. I wish that would happen. But the fact of the matter is, it has not been able to work.
But you're defending the exact opposite. You're defending getting them all out. What did Sarah lie to him about the topic?
Its way through Congress. It doesn't look like it's going to happen again. Why? Because usually Republicans want everything and then Democrats want everything, and nobody's actually willing to meet on anything in the middle.
The Democrats had the border bill. The Democrats had the bipartisan border bill that had all of the support to pass through Congress without Donald Trump calling Congress people to kill it, okay? The fact that Democrats don't want to work bipartisanly when Joe Biden just got out of office. What the fuck are you talking about?
And burn some sacred cows. Like
it was a bipartisan bill.
We know why this doesn't happen.
An RTP, my goat. Oh my God.
James Lankford's a Republican. The Democrats signed onto it in the Senate. They sent it to the House. The House said, hey.
When you say that Democrats aren't willing to do bipartisan legislation, and then he says, oh, wait, what? Well, wasn't there just a bipartisan border bill that was in Congress? And he's like, oh, this again. Yeah.
Look, we'll sign the Ukraine funding. We'll pay for Ukraine if you include a border bill. So the Senate included a border bill, and when it went to the House, Mike Johnson took the border bill, sat on it. They ran it back through as a standalone bill for the Ukraine funding. They approved the Ukraine funding, and they didn't approve the border bill.
Did you discover that politicians grandstand on issues?
And they didn't.
We know this.
And they didn't pass it because Donald.
This is directly, this dude, the conservatives do this a lot. You bring up a particular thing to address a particular point that they brought up, and then they broaden the thing and say like, oh, this has nothing to do with immigration. Well, yeah, obviously politicians grandstand. Well, no, we're talking about whether or not the Democrats have any will to work bipartisanly. You just said that they don't, but this is a super clear example of them working bipartisanly.
Trump wanted to campaign on it. So how do you explain that to somebody? That Donald Trump let the border crisis keep going on until he was in power, but he also cares about the border. How do you have both of those positions?
True.
I think it's a little bit ridiculous to claim.
I'm not gonna answer that, and I think this is ridiculous.
Donald Trump was like shadow governing while he was not in office and working his way through courtrooms.
He was calling the Congress people. Are you saying that Donald Trump has no pull if he's not the president? I just think this is ridiculous. Good answer, buddy. What?
He has a lot of influence in the Republican caucus, but he was not the president of the United States, and it is actually the job of the current president.
So he called to get the border bill killed because it was a good election issue. He ran for the president on the fact that the Democrats did nothing on the border. What is wrong there? You don't even disagree. It's not possible to disagree with any step of that. So how can you claim that Donald Trump cares about the border when he called to kill the bipartisan border bill? Well, I just think it's absurd that he was like some kind of like shadow governor. Of course he has influence, and of course he had every will to tank the bill, and of course he ran on the fact that Democrats were weak on the bill, even though it was because they didn't pass the bill that he called to kill. But you just not like the framing?
Or the then sitting president of the United States, Joe Biden, to try and govern and work with the rowdy people in Congress to bring people together. He was just not capable of doing that. We haven't had a president really since
the infrastructure bill, the fucking the Inflation Reduction Act. He got green energy passed through Congress. The idea that Biden's not able to bring together both halves of Congress is just, oh my God! I want to say bad words so bad. Oh my God.
George W. Bush that like got people or got a deal as far as it got during that time period. And
Joe Biden had multiple bills that were passed.
Dude, I cannot watch this debate. This is killing me. How did they go for so much longer? Oh my, we're halfway through. We're halfway through. I can't. We have to speed it up again. I can't watch this.
Trump has never had one.
But again, if the American public is at a point where they are so frustrated with the scale and the scope of illegal immigration,
especially since this fucking idiot just keeps repeating the same exact dog shit talking point and refusing to engage with anything that RTP says. This isn't a debate. This isn't a conversation. This is a fucking rhetoric off. Oh my god, it's so insufferable.
Support for deportations and people who are in this country illegally.
Like, why the fuck are you here when you could just keep pressing the button? Well, the people voted for this. 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 Like, why not just make a fucking robot that says that? Because you're not gonna engage with anything this person says. So why not just send in a fucking AI replacement that just responds to everything that RTP says with, well, the people voted for this. Well, the people voted for this. Well, the people voted for this.
You give it to them. Like that is a democratic response to how people are feeling in this country. And if there are consequences, I think that there should be
also the debate. I don't know if I think Sarah may have lied to him about the topic of the debate, because it says up here the Trump deportations do more harm than good, but this guy seems to be arguing, did the people vote for Donald Trump? So I don't know if this guy was given the wrong topic, or if he thinks that every single democratic thing ever is good. In which case, why do we have rights in the Constitution at all?
And I hope then that policy comes of that is good. Again, I would like to go back to my original motion that I would like to see the United States population triple in size over the next 20 years. I actually think it is a matter of the national interest and important for our competitiveness in the future.
So deport 11 million people? That'll help us?
Yeah, so actually
backwards.
Yeah, I know these are dollars. These are dollars and cents. But I do think that it would get us there in the long run. You have to have people actually believe in the immigration system if you're going to triple the size of the country in the long run. If people don't support immigration and you can't even get above the 50% mark, you're never going to get that growth. And part of actually getting us there is going to be cracking down on illegal migrants, getting people out of the country, and trying to re-normalize immigration systems in this country and immigration politics, which has gone completely off the rails in our lifetime. It's important to stabilize that. I'm thinking long term here. If we can actually go through a period of pretty rigorous deportations with high costs, I think we can get back to a point where immigration and support in this country is positive.
Why would that triple the growth? Why would getting rid of immigrants triple the growth? People are going to be so happy to get rid of immigrants, they just start fucking constantly. Like everybody just gets hard because the immigrants are gone and they all just start fucking each other, and then we triple the population. Who the fuck's going to want to come to America?
What is in your coffee?
Oh my God. Who the fuck's going to want to come to America when we watch the way that we treat immigrants? Who is going to want to come here? People,
yes! I made that point early. Oh my God. Yes. This is dissuading legal immigrants as well. The way that we're treating our immigrant population is dissuading legal immigration. Yes. They suddenly become nonpartisan outsiders that are frustrated with the entirety of politics when it's the side they advocate for that has failed. Yep, Admiral, they play games with everything to remain on top of the narrative. They don't see learning anything as a win. Everything is negative sum for their brain. Okay.
We have a problem in Arizona right now. One of the big problems we have in Arizona, if you go down into like the southern parts of Arizona, is that legal migrant labor won't come here anymore. So people who have been coming here for 20 years, who come here seasonally for legal migrant labor that have the same protections as American citizens when it comes to being paid a living wage, they won't come here anymore. The farmers can't find anybody to work because nobody trusts our government. Because like I said, Donald Trump, you could say that people voted for this. Nobody voted for this. You're full of shit. Donald Trump said, I'm going to go after violent criminals. And 70% of who they're going after aren't violent criminals. You can't pretend. One of two things is true. Either Donald Trump lied and you guys didn't know it, or Donald Trump lied and you knew he lied. And now we're back to this situation where you guys seem to be all very upset about a problem. And I'd like to ask you a real question, Stephen. Outside of how immigrants make Republicans for some reason feel icky, what damage are immigrants as a whole, illegal immigrants as a whole, doing to this country?
What damage are you?
Great question. Point to any demonstrable harm at all. He's gonna say it makes the people around him feel weird, and the local taxes might go up for schooling of the illegal immigrants. Am I right? Or is he just gonna say this is what the people voted for?
Illegal immigrants
outside of your feelings.
Outside of my feelings.
And as a whole, right? So you can't use individual examples of like this person robbed a store. As a whole, what is illegal immigration doing that hurts you outside of your feelings?
Yeah, so I would actually go back to distorting the way that representation is counted when we talk about the House of Representatives. 435 House seats that are dispersed based on the U.S. Census and the census of each state and reapportioned accordingly. I think there's actually a huge problem in this country being able to determine where we actually have the most people and who our constituents are. There was who's the congressman, the senator from Maryland who was dealing with Kilmar Brago Garcia?
Holland? Is it Holland?
I can't remember. It was the Democratic senator who was dealing with Garcia when he was sent to El Salvador. Anyways, when he spoke to the press about going and sitting down and having that breakfast meeting with Garcia, he referred to him as his constituent. And that was really interesting to me. So going, he's your constituent. He's not actually like a Maryland man. He is, in fact, an illegal immigrant. He's not a citizen.
Wait, no, he wasn't.
This debate was the definition of a dog walking. It's it's not even a fucking debate. It's literally RTP making points and Steven saying, well, didn't the people vote for this? This isn't a debate. This isn't a discussion. And being calm and doing like fucking 15-minute soliloquies back and forth is not a discussion.
Let me please finish my thought, okay? He's not a citizen. He's not voting in elections. He's not your constituent. And a lot of the politics, particularly in blue states, has gotten to be so warped where the public school systems, the city councils, the state legislatures are very much responding to the politics of illegal immigrants and people who are not actually supposed to be in this country. And that does actually pose a huge problem for the social fabric, trust in this country, credibility of our institutions, apportionment of seats in Congress. I know these things are boring to you, but I actually think that these things are really, really important. And
just don't count them on the census. You don't have to deport them.
I mean,
don't count them on the census then.
I would love that, but they're not.
I mean,
that's true. Yeah, why deport them?
We have the same problem.
Because this is about power. Like a huge thing about immigration, it's about power. It's about how many people you command in your state. It's about how many voters you have.
God.
It is a huge factor.
And now when you can't do the fucking soliloquies, you just say, well, the Democrats are trafficking in voters. True. Yes, the conspiracy. We're trafficking in voters. It's about power. It's about apportionment. That's the only reason why people would want immigrants. I don't give a fuck about the GDP. I don't give a fuck about morality. I just care that the Democrats are doing this for apportionment. Oh, Texas gets 2 House seats and California also gets 2 House seats. It's for apportionment.
Doesn't get discussed enough in the immigration fight.
So, Steve, just real quick for clarification, are you then going to oppose the representation that Republicans are going to garner for these detention facilities? Because I actually live next to Pinal County in Arizona, and like something like a third of that, like Florence, like a third of Florence, which is in Pinal County, their representation are people in prison. Those are people that cannot vote. Those are people that, by the same reason, people who are here illegally. But that's what happens. Republicans put prisoners in their districts so that they count, and that's why you see all of these detention facilities where they're being built in Republican areas. I just want to make sure you're going to oppose that too. When they count that for the census, you're going to oppose that, right?
Sure. Yeah. If what you're describing is, I don't know if what you're saying is true, but that sounds like something that scumbag people would do. I believe that politicians do scummy things all the time.
So why don't we just not count them on the census? Why do then we have to deport them? Because not counting them on the census would fix this problem.
Because Americans aren't crying out for census reform; they're crying out for deportation.
Yeah. I think we have a racist.
Wow. Okay, why don't we just stop? Well, it's what the people voted for. The golden response. Oh my God. I'm sure this guy had no complaints for anything that Joe Biden did. I'm sure. Actually, why do we even hold our presidents accountable in the first place for anything at all? Why even have impeachment? It's what the people voted for.
Problem. Let's be honest. And the reason that I say that, if you go to DHS right now, go to DHS.gov and go to their library. They have go to their media releases and go to their library, and you will see propaganda videos of them detaining immigrants. And I can give you as many hours as you want. I dare you to find me a white person who is being detained and videotaped and used as propaganda. Why are there no white people being detained? There's no white people on visa overstays?
I'm sure they're out there.
Well, where's the videos?
I don't know.
Why do you think that DHS seems to only put up Hispanic people with tattoos?
I think it's because that's a pretty good descriptor of the individuals who are packed into the townhouse next door to me, like 20 of them, who nobody recognizes, trusts, or knows how to talk to. I think actually it is, in fact, what people are most worried about.
That's racism. You're describing racism right now.
No, so
you're describing looking at somebody with tattoos.
Okay. If the people, I hope RTP asks this question. Maybe not. If the people voted to get rid of all of the Mexicans, like actually, if Trump ran on, I want to get rid of the Mexicans, and then the people vote for him, is that good? Is that good?
Tattoos and saying that they are the problem. You're literally describing what you look at, being scared of it, and then wanting to get rid of it.
I really find like when the Democrats fell over themselves to defend the face tattoo guys in the El Salvador prison.
I don't give a shit about people with face tattoos. Post Malone has face tattoos. Should we get rid of him too?
No, but
he's white. My bad. Yeah, that's right. Not Post Malone.
I would be in favor of getting rid of him.
Yeah, he's white. He's whatever the color his tattoos are mostly. Yeah, he's a white guy.
I thought he was mixed with something.
He might be. He might be like part sheep. I'm not sure.
No, but I mean, like.
You're just describing that you're looking at things that you're scared of, Stephen, and you want them to go away. That's what you just described. I don't like this. It makes me nervous. It must go away.
If the people voted to get rid of the Mexicans, would you support it? You can make the same argument for it, please.
I think you're right. I think you're correctly identifying that there are a lot of people in America that look at something that looks different than them, and they're fine overlooking everything else and being cruel because these people look differently. But if it was your dad who had been sent to CCOT, you would react a little bit differently. If your dad had just was guilty of a misdemeanor and was now in a life prison sentence in El Salvador, I think you would think differently.
Rewatch shaking my head. Does he say it? Does he say it?
That's my dad. He died 2 months ago. Good
Well,
guy.
fuck, that sucks. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I
you're,
wish I would've used that
you're a
example.
fucking asshole.
Oh, just fuck off. How am I supposed to know that your dad
Only
was
if he
alive?
knew
Used it as an
that.
example.
Oh,
Like,
Jesus.
Jesus.
I was just
Jesus.
having fun with
Okay,
you.
my bad,
Calm,
my bad.
calm down. He
What was the first time you swore? It threw me off guard.
So yes,
you guys are killing me.
so let me go back to the racism point, because that's the real fun thing that everybody wants to talk about. I think people are smart, and people make pretty clear differentiations between the kind of people who move into their neighborhood, what they look like, what they do, how they talk, and who they are with. And so it is pretty clear to most people in my neighborhood. And again, there's like this kind of one strip that's a bunch of black guys and black families, and they have like this high level. I know you don't like personal anecdotes from my life, but I'm going to give them to you anyways. There's like this high level of distrust again with like the overcrowded townhomes full of single males. That's sketchy. There's women going in and out of the house at weird hours of the night, mattresses being tossed out. It's sketchy as fuck. But
What's
then
sketchy
there's
about that?
there's the units that are the families.
Wait, what's sketchy about that?
I want to finish.
Okay.
Then there are the units that are the families. Nobody gives a shit. There are kids playing out in the front yard. They're playing water games in the back. They're grilling. And sure, there's like 15 of them. But it's like parents, lots of children, some cousins.
This is a discussion, by the way. I'm going to talk for 5 minutes about this story that I have. Oh, can I ask a follow-up question? No, shut the fuck up. Let me finish. That's a discussion, by the way. This is the real discussion. This is the actual real discussion of two men engaging.
And if you live in a neighborhood, and you and I are both girl dads, you're raising a family, you care a lot about that. You care a lot about whether or not the people next door are family, or if it's 20, 25-year-old males who are just smoking, cussing, tattooed as hell, and just creepy. Like people care. No, people care about these things. And you can cast it immediately as racism, or you can say that people are actually quite discerning, and they go, I'm against a house of 20 Latino males with tattoos who all are packing into this truck in the morning and coming back at night, but I'm completely for the Latino family. So explain to me like how that works, if it's just pure racism, or if it's just kind of common sense about how we relate to people.
Yeah, because of statistics, Stephen. Statistically speaking, the person most likely to hurt my daughter and your daughter is someone that we know, and someone that looks like us. A white man statistically is most dangerous to your daughter. So when you are looking at white men who are living like you are living, and you're like, oh, they don't scare me, but you're looking at a group of I think you said Latino men, who, by the way, you also said have work trucks, so it seems like they have jobs, who just stay up all night, and they seem to be single, so they're fucking, and maybe it might get a little rambunctious because they keep having to throw out the mattresses, so maybe they got to put down a towel or something. I don't know, but statistically speaking, the people most dangerous to your daughter, you're not afraid of. That's how I know it's racism, Stephen, because you're talking about common sense, and you're talking about feelings, and you are projecting something onto these people that statistically speaking, your priest, your family members, your friends are more likely to hurt your daughter. That's why I say it's racism, because you're not looking at the data to make your decision. You're looking at your feelings and what scares you. And so far, what you've told me is that there's a bunch of people that stay up late, that seem to have jobs, and they have tattoos. And what you haven't done is told me any of the harm that these people have caused in your neighborhood outside of people thinking that they are harmful.
Yes.
You haven't given me one example of the harm that they're creating. So it sounds racist.
The harm that they're creating?
Yeah.
For one, you're talking about people who don't know anything about the way that the community works. They litter and they throw out trash. They don't even know like what fucking trash day is around here. It's crazy.
So deport them? No. Oh my god.
People who come into these neighborhoods.
They litter.
Seriously, they do. They come into these neighborhoods. They don't know the way that the neighborhood works. They don't even know that, like,
yes,
for example,
they litter. Get them the fuck out of here.
And then communities actually decay. Housing value. No, people don't bother to read.
Did you know
just, like,
your
moving in
neighbors
with
not
their
read?
buddy.
Did your neighbors not read?
I know that this is fun for you, but
It's not fun for me.
I actually want to try to like finish a point.
You can't generally say that you can't read.
Hold on.
That's
I think we need to be mindful that, anecdotally, it sits a certain way for you, Stephen, right? But I think, somebody could easily clap back to that and say, well, pick a different neighborhood, right? Or pick one with an HOA, or I would even fire back and say, we have privacy laws. So like if everybody was leaning in to see what somebody's doing in their backyard or in their home, things of that nature, I would say like that actually, because you were pretty stringent about the process and the legalities of America.
Russ,
it's almost like
tattoos are the standard for acceptance. Half my job would be deported if they weren't white. Well, do they litter?
constitutionalist, right? And that would be that your very thought here would actually go against what you were kind of preaching to earlier, right? Because we have these privacy laws built in place, and what happens is you can have 100 people living in your home if it's your home, right? So I don't know if it's necessarily helpful to the cause in terms of your argument. And because it's anecdotal, I don't know if I want to continue down that path necessarily. I would
That's fair.
utilize,
It's fine if you don't want to
something-
continue down the path. I feel quite confident that people who are watching this know that this is a shared experience. And RTP can try to make this sound like it's gonzo and harebrained all he wants, but this is something that people are actually going through.
I know. You could call it anecdotal, and I know that it's not backed up by any data, but I know in my heart that I'm right. True. Why even come to debate? Why even come to debate if you're just going to go, well, I know that the data doesn't back me up, and I know that I can't actually point to anything other than they litter, but I know in my heart that I'm right and that RTP is wrong. And if he doesn't want to accept it, then he just needs to realize the majority of people voted for Donald Trump. Why did you come to this debate?
All across this country, and that's why they're voting. That's why they're voting the way that they are. And
they're racist and
like to
poorly
see.
informed.
I would like to see
they're being lied
nativism
to by their
decline.
politicians, and you guys lie to them. You scare them. Republicans just wake up every day in fear because that's all you guys know. You are just preaching fear, and you're putting that fear onto immigrants, and then you're treating immigrants inhumanely, and you're justifying it. Your only justification so far, Stephen, is littering.
Oh, that was my only justification in this.
I asked
hour
what they
and
do to
22 minutes.
For your neighbors, I asked what harm have they caused, and you said littering and apparently having too many trucks.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty concrete harm when you live in a neighborhood with people. It can actually really impact your quality of life.
So send them to torture camps? So really the answer? Like you go out and you're like, oh, it's fucking I'm sure he would say a word, but I can't say it because I'm streaming to Twitch. But he'd be like, "Oh, fuck these fucking." I hope they get tortured in El Salvador. Or like a crumpled up piece of paper on your driveway. Okay, really?
It
I
changes
don't know how
a
you'll
lot.
recover from littering.
You know,
Good luck.
I know that you think this is a joke, but when you're talking about people's
And by the way, the irony of being like, I don't really care about GDP rising, and yeah, the prices are gonna go up. Okay, why? What's the harm? Well, I went outside, and there were like three trucks backed up to this place, and they don't like mow their lawn often enough. There's like people in and out all the time, and there's like a piece of paper every once in a while that drifts towards my house. So we have to spend billions of dollars to get them all out at the expense of the GDP. Like, dude, this is like actually... Please, I hope RTP ties it back to that. Please point out how this guy thinks that littering in his community is more important than the GDP. Please.
lives and their communities and homes that they invest in, communities where they have sort of a stake in actually how things are going, it does play a really big role. The quality of the neighbors that we'll have in the future, the fact of like whether or not my daughter, and again, like my Venezuelan neighbors' daughters feel safe going outside. These things are important, and they don't go outside, by the way, because they don't feel safe here. So they go
But there's no evidence that they're unsafe, Stephen.
But you know
Other
what?
than you think that these people have tattoos.
I'm gonna go back here because I know it's like the facts don't care about your feelings thing, but a lot of times in politics, feelings don't care about facts, and the feelings issue here is important, and it is how our politics has gotten to the point where it is overly polarized.
I don't care about facts. I'm going based off of my gut feeling, and I came to debate it for some reason. I came to debate my gut feeling against your facts, and every time you try to tie it back to any sort of empirics or any sort of anything that can be provable, I'm just gonna go based off of my gut feeling. These people litter. Let's get them all the fuck out of here. This is actually vile. Like, using this as a justification to literally deport people to CCOT, a torture camp, because, well, they litter and they make my community look less appealing. And like, what if home buyers don't want to live next to these kind of people? We have to get them all out of here and cost $1 billion to send them to CCOT so they could get tortured. So they're like littering all the time and they're like backing up work trucks. Get the fuck out of here. Like, it's actually gross. I wonder how much of this is isolated white dudes jealous of people that belong to a tighter, bigger community. I don't know.
I would also agree that nativism is rising in this country in a way that you and I both dislike.
Because of you. Because of you. No. You don't dislike it. You want to claim that you dislike it so you don't have to defend it, but then you're going to keep appealing to nativist rhetoric.
I don't like the tone of our politics. I don't like where Republican politics on immigration has gone. This is not what
I don't like the tone of our politics, but also I want to make sure that people feel comfortable in their communities like they did in the 1950s. Fucking... he's a liar. This is a grifter. The Benny Johnson allegations, oh my god. The Benny Johnson allegations feel fully vindicated, even just by the end of this conversation. This is exactly how Benny Johnson would engage with anything. Oh my god. My intuitions, my gut feelings, okay? Rural white folk, my people literally throw garbage in the natural streams and rivers we swim out here. The Venn diagram between garbage dumpers and maggots is a circle. True.
But the only way that I think that we can roll this back and to make things better is we have to go through a period of stringent law enforcement to make people believe that this is a real system of rules and laws and accountability. And then if we actually accomplish that, and it's going to be painful, and it's going to be painful for individuals. I talked about that in my opening statement as well. It's not a pleasant process to be deported for a lot of these people.
Because they're littering, by the way. It's going to be painful for these people. It's going to be a little strong. It's going to be a little harsh. Some people are going to feel a little uncomfy. But we have to get them out because they're littering. Fuck you. Jesus.
But it is in the best interest of the country.
Based on what, Stephen? Your feelings. This whole thing.
Also, this is literally nationalism. Like, killing hurting the people for the good of the country is nationalism. This is nationalism. I don't. How can you say you want to strive away from nativist rhetoric, but we want to return to the 1950s, and we need to, there's going to be some harm towards individuals, but we need to do it for the good of the country? What do you think what is nativist rhetoric? What even is it? Because you're doing it. This is nativist. This is nativist rhetoric. This is nationalist rhetoric. What are you talking about?
And a bunch of other Republicans feel like this is the right thing to do. Statistically, economically, you don't have an argument economically. You don't have an argument even when it comes to the rule of law, because your party consistently ignores the rule of law. It is fascinating to watch a party led by Donald Trump lecture people about whether or not misdemeanors are a reason why somebody could get in trouble. You guys, like, your party won't even admit that Donald Trump was held liable for sexually assaulting somebody because it's a civil case. These are civil matters. These are not criminal matters that people are being deported for. They're civil matters, and we're an hour in now, and you're still just telling me that there are other people like you who see people with face tattoos and go, ah, until they don't feel safe in their neighborhood. This is why people, like, if you look at Democrats have never been more ashamed of their country than they are right now, and it's because we are treating people horrifically based strictly, it appears, on their appearance. That's what I think the problem is. I mean, what's different about what's different about when we rounded Japanese people and put them in internment camps? Was that the right thing to do? There was a real.
Is that a serious question?
That's a very serious question.
Well, didn't the Supreme Court vote that anyway?
That's actually a way better question. I don't even know if RTP knows how good of a question that is, because it's using the Japanese internment camps were because of the Alien Enemies Act, which is in place right now for Venezuelans. So that was a fucking amazing question, actually.
We were actually at war then.
And please make him answer it. Please, please, please make him answer it.
Wrong. Or do you agree that we should have done internment camps?
I can't believe you're asking me this. No, I don't support internment camps of the Japanese.
Okay, so why do you support interning them in CCOT? Is it just because it's out of the country?
Internment camps for these folks? What's the difference?
Australia had an island off the East Coast for housing their illegal immigrants up until just a couple of years ago. They did.
I don't live in Australia, bud. You want to answer this question?
No, just like these are Western, like, liberal democracies, and you act like we're the only people who house, detain, and deport
this
people.
is the only country I get to vote in. So you're running against me. Every time I ask you a question that you don't want to answer, you do some like little whataboutism, or you're like, what about Australia? I want to know what's the difference between the internment camps that we put Japanese people in and these internment camps now. What's the difference?
The internment camps of the Japanese, we all know, were instituted because there was generally a belief that if you were Japanese, you were funneling information back to the homeland that you were spying for or cooperating with a foreign power during war.
And was that true?
Well, of course not. And these are detainment facilities for illegal migrants who are going to be waiting for flights, I hope, back to their home countries or third-party countries. If we get, again, and I want to say this very clearly, like, if we get
not
down
for
a year,
I'm
2
sorry,
years down the road,
not for CCOT. I don't think CCOT is a temporary holding facility. I'm pretty sure they're staying there. Maybe not, but
these people are still sitting in these facilities, I'll come here and just say, like, yeah, I was fucking wrong. This is atrocious. We're just holding these people. There's talk about sending people to Guantanamo Bay, which, if you know anything about Guantanamo Bay, that's just where you go and you just sit and languish for the rest of your life until the next time we close it. If that.
Sorry, wait, hold on. I know for a fact they're probably that CCOT isn't the place where they're just waiting, because it's literally in the Garcia thing, allegedly. So I don't know it for a fact, but assuming everything in the Garcia thing is true. The guard literally said as they were coming in, "Welcome to CCOT, the place where you don't come back," or some shit like that. So hold this guy to this, okay? Please, 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 please hold this guy to this.
Happens, I'm against it. That's bad. Nobody wants that. But if these people are being staged for flights back to their countries of origin,
honestly, the fear of the Japanese immigrants was far more justified, or the fear of the Japanese immigrants was far more justified than the fear of the Latin American immigrants. We were at war. Yes, it was more justified. It was bad, but it was actually probably more justified, genuinely, than sending randos with tattoos to CCOT to get tortured.
I'm for it. But until that doesn't happen, I think you're just dealing in pretty harebrained theories, comparing this to Japanese internment camps. Everybody knows that's not true.
You're aware that, of course, there are people that have been held in ICE detention camps for years already, right? You're aware of that?
I am.
Okay, and you're aware that U.S. citizens have been held in ICE detention for up to 50 days.
Yeah, there were about 75 American citizens in 2022 who were picked up in different ICE raids, and then they were detained for a long period of time. I hope they win their lawsuits.
Yeah, me too. But you just said that if people wound up being held for years, then you would come on the stream and you would denounce it. Well, it's been years, so I think it's time to denounce it, Stephen.
I mean, I denounce that. I think it's bad, but that doesn't give us carte blanche.
We should just keep doing it?
That doesn't give us carte blanche to not have an illegal immigration enforcement system where we capture, detain, and deport people, which we both know is a thing that's happening.
I wish that we would bring this up. People would bring this up a lot more, or would do this a little more. Can we at least agree that we shouldn't be sending them to CCOT? Can we agree that there should be some condemnation for Trump knowingly sending these people to a torture camp? Can we at least agree on that, please? Because a couple hundred people went over there to be tortured. Can we at least agree that that was bad?
In the system, I'm against it.
Probably he wouldn't.
Things that one of the things that I think is pretty undeniable about, we don't need to talk about the big, beautiful bill, but the amount of money that is being pumped into DHS and ICE. I mean, ICE is now going to be, and I think it's a little bit weird, but they're now going to be like the most well-funded immigrant or law enforcement agency in the country.
Shout out big government.
They're going to be getting
more
than 100 billion through 2029. DHS is going to be getting even more for enforcement on these issues. But I would like to point us back to the kids in cages stuff again from 2021, 2022, and this continued to occur in the Biden administration. There was a lot of these images of people in like the foil blankets and stuff, and the, you know, just the really horrible conditions on the border. I think you might.
I don't think we're relishing enough in what's happening here. He's trying to capitulate to RTP just enough to not sound crazy and save face. He was owned so hard. This is top 10 owns. Yeah, this is a absolute colossal, unjustifiable beatdown.
The pictures I'm talking about, where everybody in those really packed cages wearing tinfoil blankets. This is also like a funding issue. We're going to actually have to put money into this operation if Americans want it to happen. Otherwise,
body
it's a
language
humanitarian
too.
tragedy.
He knows he's being stomped. Yeah, it's no contest.
Steve, those people weren't ripped from their job sites, from their homes, from courts. Those were people that were detained at the border. There's a massive difference between ripping people from their families who are here working, who have committed no crime. Some of them have been here for decades, have never committed a crime. They're paying into our system, and we literally, in some cases, ripping them out of the arms of their family to detain them. I appreciate that you want to whataboutism your way out of this one too, but you know what Obama didn't do? You know what Trump didn't do the first time? You know what Biden didn't do? They didn't flood these neighborhoods, break into people's houses. They didn't smash windows, throw in flashbangs.
I was just trying to have a level-headed exchange about the necessity
yeah,
of
and I
funding
think
these
that's a
things.
silly. It's a silly way for you to once again. It's a silly way for you to once again avoid answering any of this.
Yep.
This is
everybody. I've never answered any question. He just keeps doing this routine. No, you actually have to put funding into these different programs and immigration enforcement.
He's just doing this routine. By the way, they voted for this. They voted for this. He's just doing this routine where he's asking me questions and expecting answers. Because the answer is always going to be that they voted for this. That's true. It is kind of a fucking stupid routine because the answer we already know. There's no point in asking them the question. The answer is going to be, well, they voted for this. My community was overrun by brown people who were throwing trash all over the place. And the people voted to send them to a torture camp. This ruined their friendship? Really?
It has become this divisive third rail issue in Congress where nobody ever wants to do anything. One of the probably more positive things that did happen in this budget bill, which again was a monstrosity of an omnibus bill, was to put money where the party's mouth is on this issue. They're actually going to have to be able to fund detainment, housing, and deportation. It's going to require a huge commitment. We've never really done that. And we've never really done that before.
Yes,
and I think
true.
that lack of funding
For no
has led
benefit.
to a lot of the things that you're talking about. And again, anybody who's detained who's not supposed to be, I hope they win their lawsuit. That's it.
Yeah, look, I appreciate that. It doesn't change any of this. Is that the reason that we're detaining and rounding up people with no criminal history is because, frankly, I'm like Stephen Miller's running this. Somebody's going to tell me Stephen Miller's not like just an avowed racist, that he's not a white nationalist. He was best friends with Richard Spencer. He's been since college. He's been spouting white nationalist ideas publicly on the radio. It's who he is, and he's pushing this. And you're going to tell me this isn't about white nationalism? The problem that I think we have more than anything is that Americans, specifically Americans that look like you and I,
I'm afraid that if I start doing the reading on Stephen Miller, I actually might become radicalized. Like I actually might be like a revolutionist because, like, holy fuck. I've heard some kooky stuff about him. Well, we'll do that. We'll do that at some point.
We have real problems, but we pretend that we do. We've somehow become afraid of immigrants. And so now folks like you are willing to shut your eyes and watch people be treated like second-class citizens and be thrown in prison, some of them thrown in life sentences in countries that they've never even been before, all because you think they're a little bit icky. They look a little bit different to you. And you think that this is going to fix the country? Name me one country who has done
lives on the fringes of society, has their payroll taxes deducted from every check they're doing on a farm. They come here, they do cheap labor, and then people say, oh, they're contributing to our GDP, and they're funding our social security, but you don't want to have them documented. Those are second-class citizens.
You ready for the question now,
A person
Stephen?
who doesn't actually belong in the country, who is an illegal immigrant, who's sitting in a detainment facility to go home, is not a second-class citizen. They're nothing at all. They're a citizen of someone else's country, and they're going home.
They are nothing at all.
They're nothing at all. He said it's immoral to treat these people like second-class citizens. What we should be doing is treating them like nothing. Wait, hold on. Let me show you. Hold on. American Dad cottage cheese. This is how I feel watching this.
Hey, Dad, how about a healthy snack?
Oh my god. Okay.
I think that encapsulates. Steve, just give me an example in history when mass deportation was a good thing.
I don't know, man.
Yeah,
I don't
weird,
know.
huh?
I don't know.
You know
You're
about
doing like some,
fucking
you're doing some like
rip-
Google, you do little Google research to like arm yourself over chatting. I don't know. I don't have an example off the top of my head of like a mass deportation campaign that was positive.
Could you think of some that were bad?
I think here that we are dealing again in a
Could you think of some?
political rot.
If we're gonna have a discussion, at some point you've got to respond to the things I'm saying
At
instead
some
of just
point,
whatever the fuck you want.
at some point,
All right,
some point.
here's what we're going to do, because I feel like this is not going anywhere positive, right? I don't think we're making any headway in the conversation. And so what I'd like to do, if gentlemen, if you'll oblige me, if you're agreeable, I'd like to move into closing statements and do read and respond to super chats. And I think that if we open the panel up, I think we might get somewhere a little further with the conversation to allow a little more room for other thought processes, because Stephen is, you're kind of going in one direction, RTP is going in another, but we're not really getting any clarification or conclusion per se between the two directions that you're going in, right? We're not coming together on those. So maybe if we can bring in some other folks, we can actually get through
He's so mad.
different points, or maybe somebody can translate and bring that together. Would that be okay with the both of you?
Yeah, have at it.
Okay. All right. So Stephen, if you'd like to kick off with your closing statement, please.
Yeah, closing statement. I am concerned about the heart and direction of this country. I feel like it is getting embittered. It is getting ugly. I think something that Jay and I both agree on is that there is a rise in nativist sentiment that is capturing politics in this country.
That he's
there is
engaging in,
distrust
by the
amongst
way.
people
Don't forget.
and their neighbors. There's distrust against people and their political institutions. I worry that it's all going to fall apart. I really do. I think that immigration as an issue is going to be the next issue that breaks apart this country into some kind of meaningful conflict. I think that it's something that is not in the realm of fiction. I think immigration is the thing that will do that. It might be in the realm of brass tacks, where it's just really, combat between states over, again, representation in Congress and who has the most power when they go to Washington, D.C., and who is lining their populations with illegal immigrants to increase their political power. And then I just also believe that it's going to break down because of a lack of good faith and goodwill in our communities at home. I think we actually have to address it. Deportation is something that we just don't do enough of. We don't fund it well enough, and we don't take it seriously. I think that this is the best thing for the country to get back on the right track.
Didn't he just criticize funding ICE more, making it the most funded law enforcement agency, but also, maybe I misheard that, but also just said that it's something that needs more funding? Did I mishear that? Didn't he just come out and criticize the big beautiful bill for doing that?
Actually go through a period of pretty stringent law enforcement. And look, I think just like really in some cases, just going hard on this issue of deportations and immigration, we will get back to a point where the American public feels comfortable again and supportive of immigration, which we need. We have talked a little bit about—
If you do your research, you're just a sweaty tryhard. True. What you should do is tell me 5 minutes about how icky your house makes or how icky your neighborhood looks because of all of the litter from the brown people. That's what you should be doing. But also, like, fuck nativism, am I right? Oh my god.
The Social Security bomb, that's going to be a big problem for this country. Retirement, different entitlements programs. The money does not come from nowhere. And then again, like, white folks aren't having enough kids to actually keep the whole thing afloat. It's going to be a big problem. So immigrants are a huge part of
white folk.
our future. And we actually have to get the political will in this country back in a place where we can do that. And that's going to require a little bit of dad action in Washington, Trump coming and being law and order. And then we can get back to being nice and namby-pamby about it again. That's
True. Law and order. The convicted felon.
Closer.
Thank you, Stephen. And RTP to you.
Yeah, we've done this for an hour and a half, and I thought I was pretty careful about cultivating an opening statement where I thought we were going to be able to talk about statistics and data, and I think that Republicans in general, and Stephen in this discussion, they don't want to talk about those numbers. They want to talk a lot about their feelings. It was I feel. He said, I worry that this will all fall apart, and I believe that that's what Republicans think. And they think that because they are fed a steady diet of lies by white nationalists parading as patriots, trying to convince them that what is the problem in this country is immigrants and not vulture capitalists, not wealth inequality, not a lack of access to healthcare, not a lack of access to good paying jobs, not a lack of access to quality food, not a lack of access to a quality education. It is indeed the brown people. It's always the brown people. Every great democracy or every great country who has falls this exact same way. They scapegoat people. In Germany, it was the Jews. In the United States, it's going to be brown immigrants. If you want to look at the numbers, though, a comprehensive analysis by the American Immigration Council estimates that deporting 13.3 million undocumented immigrants in a single large-scale operation would cost at least $315 billion, but better estimates are probably around $800 billion. And on top of that $800 billion, we are going to lose a net positive of $50 billion that comes into our economy. And all of this could be avoided if we just granted amnesty to those who are here, who are working hard, who are raising families, who have no criminal history, and they could keep working where they're at, and they could contribute to society. Most studies, almost every studies, found that illegal immigration has almost no effect on the average wages of native-born American workers. Some research even shows that there is a positive effect. There is almost no danger posed to you by immigrants as a collective, although sometimes an immigrant can cause you a problem. The result of all of this, if Donald Trump is successful, is that we will have the least effective, most expensive, and most hate-filled deportation in the history of this country. Obama deported far more people than Trump, and he did it without riots in the streets. Biden deported more people than Trump, and he did it without riots in the street. Trump 1.0 was able to deport more people without riots in the street. It's the cruelty. And the result will be that a bunch of white nationalists will be happy that they were able to convince generic Republicans that the great replacement theory is real, and they will be happier, but our country will be poor, and it will be more white, and we will destroy our credibility amongst any Latino country, forcing us to go find labor somewhere else that we desperately need, and then try and convince those people, hey, this time though, we're going to be cool this time. This time we're going to be cool. Don't look at the past. That's it.
Fair enough. Thank you, RTP. And I am dropping.
That does hit at something really, really salient, where it's like, fuck, we're gonna look back on the way that we're treating people here, like, really, really disgustingly. The idea that we were sending people to CCOT, and then we're probably going to try to cozy back up to them whenever there's a new president. It's like, it feels gross. It really makes you feel gross.
The open panel link in chat for anyone who, especially all you crap talkers out in the chat there. I see you. The panel is officially open backstage. Please feel free to hop back there while we go through the super chats. For the chats, I'm going to go ahead and only read 10 and up for now, just for purposes of time. But I will get through the $5.
I do want to see a little bit of the open panel with Steven, just to see how people engage with him.
All right, so chat, you can choose.
Oh god, but the fucking Ditzo's here. So
anyone off the screen, you know the drill. $5 starting. I guess I'm definitely 5 minutes in the back, and I've got 2 more people sitting backstage ready to come up as well, so they can be replaced. And I'm sure the panel will be shaken up some more throughout the evening. Also, the gauntlet is now open. I will be dropping the link in the chat. We will be shutting down Tomato here within the next 15 minutes. Ryan, you already got a boot.
Can I say one thing before?
One thing before, go ahead. It
okay, so I mean, like Steven, I think admitted multiple times throughout the debate, and especially towards the end, that this is going to harm the country, as like that will be a net harm. He seems to just kind of have been justifying it, saying over and over that most people just want it, which is frankly debatable. I don't think most Americans do support deporting undocumented people who aren't committing crimes, who are showing up to court, and who are working and contributing to society. Even Trump originally claimed he was only targeting violent criminals, but that's not what's happening. We're deporting peaceful people, some to foreign prisons and even war zones. So I'll see you all in 5 minutes.
So may I go first, sir?
Yes. Who's got the echo? Somebody's got the echo.
Not me.
All right. And then also, Wick, you got a boot as well.
No, I didn't. Keep looking at the super
Oh,
chats.
my apologies. It just went through on my end. You're okay. Wick stays, and you've got a $15 credit. All right. If anybody wanted to respond to what Ryan said, you're more than welcome to go.
Yeah, I want to respond to that. First off, when you've got this new narrative that Trump would only wanted to go after people who were here that were committing crimes. That was never the case. When you said mass deportations, that meant if you're here legally, you could get.
Okay, never mind. Just gonna have a bunch of bootlickers. All right, that was fucking disgusting, nasty beatdown. So shout out RTP.